Matt,
Hello? Yes?
how do you know what is best in life? For example, if you were...
Someone asked me this. A con,
if someone
maybe.
were to ask you this, and you were to say, to crush your enemies, to see them driven before you, and to hear the lamentations of their women.
That was going to be my answer, yeah.
That's three things. But, like, are each of those equally enjoyable? Are those all best? Or should there be some sort of ranking system? Should we organize the things that are best in life into divisions of bestness? You know, some sort of some ranking or step system. Do you see what I'm getting at here? I'm struggling to come up with like a
word for it. That's okay. As nerds, we like classifying things and ranking things. So I feel like this is a good approach, right? Let's figure out some ranks. Oh, tiers maybe? A tier list?
Yes, a tier list. Exactly. Let's organize things into tiers. I think everything
like tears in the rain. And the great thing about tier lists, Rob, as far as I can tell from the internet, is they're really great at making people mad. Right? Because they're spicy hot takes, and not everyone will agree.
Well, and of course they could never be wrong because it's in a tiers. It's organized, right? You can put you put little boxes in the little how's that wrong? Like that's practically science, Matt. So of course it's going to make people mad.
Our goal here is to put all of the published adventures for 5th edition Dungeons and Dragons, now that it is finally wrapped, into a tier list, thus making every nerd mad. And again, if you disagree with us, just remember it's just our opinion. We're just two guys.
Just two guys. Yeah, it's Dungeon Master of None.
I'm Dungeon Master Matt.
And I'm Dungeon Master Rob. And this is a very special, at least 2-part episode, where Matt and I are going to go through all... Okay, well, not
there's 30 or so.
26 of the 30 or so adventures, not counting some of the...
I think we'll throw them up there just to be fun.
Okay.
We're gonna talk about Out of the Abyss, Turn of Fortune's Wheel, even things like Ricky Morty. We might throw up there. Rob and I have read through, I think I counted up, it's around 5,700 pages of adventures. So, and don't feel bad for us. We put this on ourselves.
We did this to ourselves. Also, some of these we've already read. I only had to read. I only had to read 1,000 new pages or so for this. So it's fine.
Link in the show notes. We have done previous podcasts on many of these adventures. I think I told this up too. I think we've done 22 hours of 5th edition dungeon and module reviews. And of course, our ranking system will be incredibly messed up because some of these are short campaigns. Some of them are like 15 level long campaigns. Some of them are anthologies, right? That are vary wildly from chapter to chapter. So, yeah.
Yeah, we make no promises about the quality or accuracy of this tier list because, again, we are in some cases comparing apples to oranges. But you know what? They're all adventures. They're all 5th edition. They all got to go in the tier list. So there you go.
It's not that hard. Apples are better than oranges. I don't really get that. Speaking of apples being better than oranges, so I think a lot of 5e adventures, I just want to get some things out there about 5th edition adventures.
I have many thoughts after reading these, after listening to some of our old episodes. I have a lot of thoughts about the 5th edition adventure library, I guess let's call it.
Yeah, no, we've got a huge selection, and I mean there's some things to really like about them.
Yeah.
I think they all have great art. They're really, really good at putting together amazing set pieces, and I would say for most of them, maybe not all of them, they have kind of cool concepts at their core.
Some are really cool, some are just kind of cool. And I think there's something to like in almost every one of them. And there's a lot to like in some of them. this is a pretty good set of adventures, and especially considering that it wasn't always this cadence, but it's at least 3 adventures a year for 10 years. Like that's a lot.
Yeah, it's funny. They've gone through like weird phases where there was like, we're doing this adventure. We're releasing a ton of Adventure League supplements. They're all set in the Forgotten Realms. To, we're doing adventures in our old campaign settings. To, we're just making adventures. They're set nowhere. It's really run the gamut. I have found that reading through all of these, a negative thing, right? If a great thing is they often have great concepts and great set pieces, is that a general critique is that most of these adventures really fail on a lot of the like connective tissue, the like how to get your players from point A to point B, how to let them muck around, how to like run these things, how to organize your stuff. The connective tissue problem is one we'll probably highlight when it's really bad, but just know that often the links between parts of the adventures are often a guy shows up and he makes you go there, or a guy shows up and he tells you to go over here.
I agree. This is a consistent problem. The other thing that I noticed, and this is neither good nor bad, is that reading the adventures starting from Phandelver and Tyranny of Dragons all the way up to Quest from the Infinite Staircase, is that WotC never really figured out a coherent design philosophy about their adventures. You can identify distinct phases in sort of like how they approach adventures, and there's good things and bad things about both. I would contrast this with Paizo, which has a very, very strong design and brand identity, which isn't to say that like when you pick up an adventure, you know what you're getting. They are very innovative within the framework that they have. But when you pick up a book, you know how it's going to be organized, sort of like what it's going to cover, what it's going to look like, and what sort of like quality the writing is going to be, the pieces are all going to be there. And this is not the case with Wizards of the Coast 5th edition books at all.
Yeah, no, it's you can tell there's like a lot of turnover in the creative offices. It's really like just Jeremy Crawford and Chris Perkins are the only ones who are the consistencies.
Yeah.
Early adventures are often not even written completely by WotC. They're written by third-party studios. And then I think another big point to mention is that a lot of these adventures are not always what's on the hype or marketing tin. Often there's a lot of like
that's a good point.
Articles that WotC will put out about, this adventure is really good at doing this one thing, and then you read the adventure and you're like, well, you kind of made it sound like this adventure was Mad Max and hell, and actually that's only 3 pages of it.
A small part.
Yeah. And then I'll also, I think my next to last big picture thing is one that is a little negative, which, as I think, and Rob, correct me if I'm saying this right, the glup shitification, coined by our friends at Rascal News, Chase Carter and Lynn Katega, is that as the adventures progressed, there's a lot of adventures where they just put in a character from the brand or a thing from the brand, and nothing is really done with that. Well, you might be like, hey, I love seeing a reference and noticing it. For me, that does very little for me.
Yeah, this is a consistent problem with D&D. It has always been like ever since Elminster and Drizzt Do'Urden and all of Gygax and Greenwood's dudes have become like major figures. There are often like winks and nods to those. So this is not a new problem, but Matt's correct that it really accelerates in the later years of 5th edition. And there's like, look, it's a guy. You love this guy, don't you? And that is annoying.
Converse to that acceleration, I believe like the the editing, in some of the early adventures, like I noticed like typos or spelling mistakes and stuff like that. At least that went away.
That's true.
Well, there may be other inconsistencies that went away. The other thing is I noticed is the lesson. It took everyone 10 years to learn it, both in Dungeons and Dragons and in everything else, which is the worst thing you can ever do as a company is to create a mystery box. Many of these adventures had like references to, oh, there's this big mystery going on. We don't know what it is. There's obelisks somewhere. And of course, that never panned out to anything very interesting, though, of course, we'll talk about it in detail when we get to the specific adventures. But yes, never do a mystery box.
Never do a mystery box. I have one other. It's actually really hard to say anything definitively about the whole body of work, but the one thing that I will say about every single adventure that I have read, almost without exception, and this is maybe personal preference, but is that all of them have cruft. All of them have too much junk. There is almost no exception to this. Every adventure has stuff that could and should be cut. Just sometimes a lot, sometimes a little, but there's always something. Wizards has, for its entire existence, and 5th edition is no exception, just been not very good at editing. Just not very good at and the cutting part of editing. And some adventures are better than others. I will say that the ones that are not, where either new writers or third parties were brought in are less bad about this. But every single adventure is just, there's a whole lot that just could be done away with. And they never do.
Yeah. Yeah, I think when you're reading one of those like nearly 300-page adventures, sometimes you're like, does this really need to be a 2-year campaign when it could be a 1.5-year campaign with some of the chaff cut out? I agree 100% on that. Should we talk about how are we going to organize these tiers? How are we going to decide what's best in adventuring life?
Sure. Well, I have a list of criteria, and this is what I've always used.
Cool. But let's go back and forth on these because I have a list too.
Okay, so like my number one, let's start with like the most important thing, and this is because of who I am as a GM, but I also think it's like what's most relevant is the module, is the adventure interesting or unique? And let me just spend a little time on this to explain why I think this is important, because it is not. Anyone can come up with a unique idea, and its execution is very important. So, like, it's not just like having a wild idea; it's having a wild idea that's well executed. But the reason why this is so important is that we now have 50 years of adventure modules like available to us, and there's still a lot of room for innovation because like 90% of those are like, here's a fucking dungeon crawl. So I don't think this is a particularly big ask, but I do ask it. And so if an adventure needs to have either an interesting or unique setting or hook or premise or interesting or unique NPCs or whatever, it does not need to be like avant-garde or something, but
right.
I'm looking for a reason why this is better than just rereading a good module from the 90s, you know?
Right, yeah. You've got to give me a reason that I can get myself excited to run someone else's stuff, right?
Right.
Because most dungeon masters, if you're like us, we have plenty of our own ideas. More than enough to like ever get through in our dungeon mastering lifetime. So for us to run someone else's module, and both Rob and I have run plenty of published modules, it's got to be a cool idea. And I would also say, right, for me, the thing building on that is like, is the execution there, right?
Yeah.
Is the am I reading through this and I can see how players are moved in the direction the plot wants to go? Or does like none of the villains' plans make sense, right? Does none of the world make sense? Does none of like what's actually happening here makes sense and is fun for players to interact with, right? So along with the cool concept, what I'm looking for is a good execution of that concept.
I wrote this down too. I called it, is it well written? Is it well organized? Does it is it executed well? Is it exactly a perfect way of putting that? So that was also key on my list.
So I think. Oh yeah, go ahead.
My next big one. Sorry, does that count as one of yours? You want to do yours?
Well, no. Here's my biggest one, which is, does the adventure? Okay, so these are written adventures, right? You got to have the whole book laid out. You can't run it exactly like you might run a campaign where you're making it up, 5 sessions ahead of your players as they play through it. But I look for published adventures that promote player agency, choice, creativity, and freedom, right? And this doesn't always have to be you can go anywhere you want and do anything you want. It can often be agency in how to solve a problem, how to deal with the villain, how to deal with your allies, how to approach a heist that you have to do. It can be in the small things or it can be in the big things. But if an adventure is written in a way where there's only one way to do things, that's usually a problem for me, because I often ask the question, well, what if my players do something that's not that? Does the entire campaign fall apart, and therefore I have to make sure they do something exactly like this? Otherwise, it doesn't work. That's the biggest thing for me.
I think that's very important. I think that's a great criteria. Do your players, will it work if your players actually act like they have agency within the world? I think that's critically important. My second most important criteria is the adventure useful to me as a GM or any GM? And this specifically means, can I steal from it, or can I adapt it easily? And now we have
the exact same second criteria. We did not discuss these before.
We did not discuss it.
Yeah.
I think that it is okay if a adventure works well, only if it is run as written. I think that's fine. I think it is totally fine. That's just that is sort of like a ding to me. You can still have a great adventure, but if I can't easily borrow or steal or adapt it, if it's too rigid, if it needs to be run too specifically, then that is less interesting to me. So I think that it is important. It can still have a strong driving plot and theme and things that you need to stick to, but there are some that are written in such a way that are very easy for you to borrow from. And so this is a very important criteria for me in judging the quality of an adventure.
The fun thing about this criteria is that even some of the adventures we like the least still have great stuff to steal from that you can, I'll yoink this chapter out and put it in my game.
Yeah, there are some interesting adventures that we've talked about that overall we didn't like, that had some really cool parts in them. And that's great. There are also some that I liked that would be very hard to borrow from. And we'll talk about, we'll get to it. But there are some that really are kind of constrained in that way, and there's some that are not.
I'll also add as a criteria, right, does this adventure work for 5e? For the actual game system of Dungeons & Dragons? I kind of had to put this one in here because I feel like there are some that are like, wow, this really makes you want to play a better character, or wants the players who are playing the campaign to play a better character, to advance and interact and engage with the systems of the game. And there are some other adventures that are like, this would actually be a fun adventure if you played it in a completely different system.
I was listening to some of our episodes on these adventures to refresh myself, and we said that I heard us say that in at least 2 of them, is that this would be better in X system. That's a really good one, Matt. That isn't one that's always in the back of my mind. That isn't one that I wrote down. But yeah, there are some that are great adventures, but not for this system. And we'll discuss them when we get to the tiers.
Yeah.
What's
your other ones?
My third one, and I don't have too many other big categories, just general ones, but I just wrote down characters, NPCs, locations, I guess just material provided. Is there a cool town? Are there cool NPCs? Are there good stats for monsters? Are there good magical items? All the adventures have some of these, and I'll be honest, for the most part, I don't like most of them. Sometimes it feels like D&D thinks...
Right. Often when you write an adventure, you have to put in 50 NPCs. Yeah. And by the 47th one, it's the description of the NPC gives you as the DM nothing to work with.
Yeah. So if the adventure includes NPCs that are interesting and memorable to me, same with like locations, same with items, same with monsters, that's notable. And that's rare because, they all include them. And I've read, dozens and dozens and dozens of descriptions of all of these things, and they're usually not bad, but they're usually not very interesting. So if they are interesting, if they are well done, that's a big plus for me, because going back to my previous point, those are especially easy to borrow. If there's a cool item, a cool location, a cool NPC, a cool monster, that you can just pick that up and drop that somewhere else. That's an important, that's sort of like a garnish for me. That's a nice thing to have. I'm not going to make a huge decision on that, but it does matter.
Right. I think my garnish is characters, right? The player characters. Are the player characters the star of this adventure? Are they the main characters? Or or do they not really matter, and actually a cool NPC is way more important? Related to this, is character creation and like motivation integrated well into the game? And you might be thinking, oh, wow, well, it has to be an adventure where the characters are directly linked to this. No, like character motivation could be as simple as you want to be adventurers, but like, does that work well with the adventure? Is there material given to help you integrate the characters you make to the campaign? So, are the characters the star? Are you given tools to help players make good characters for this specific campaign?
Yeah, I wrote this down as a minor note that I don't know how I would weight this, but it is important to me that the hook, the character hook, like the reason for participating in the campaign is good. Like Matt said, it can be as simple as your adventurers, but it needs to work with the campaign. And some adventures have great compelling hooks that just you're off, and I really like them. And others are like, why should my characters care about this? Why would they be involved in any of this? And yeah, that's important.
And then lastly, this one doesn't really count as a criteria, but it's just a personal bugaboo, is after rereading and reading these so many times, the one thing that annoys me more than anything else is when something is explained through magical crystals. There are magical crystals growing on something. A faction is collecting crystals. Something needs to be encased in crystals. This is late. It speaks to the overall quality, I think, because it means the writer couldn't come up with a cool way that magic works, so they just wrote in crystals and a bunch of question marks. And why this bugs me is because when you can explain how something works, then your players can interact with it and mess with it. And when it's magical crystals are doing a thing, it's laziness. We've seen it a million times before.
That's a good one, crystals. I have a one that's a little bit less petty, but is still petty, and that's just my final criteria is dungeons. Are there too many? Are they good? Are they bad? Are they boring? Are they annoying to read? I have read...
Did they forget to key them? That happens sometimes.
Did they forget to key them? Did they key them badly? Is the map confusing? Do I get confused? Look, I have problems with spatial awareness. So like if the map is three-dimensional and it's not very well described, or if it has if it operates in 3 dimensions, if you're above this room and the chute goes down to this one, blah, 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 that annoys me. I get annoyed. I'm my mind palace. I'm rotating cubes in my mind. I'm stressed. I'm unhappy. So the dungeon needs to be good. If there are too many, that's also annoying. I've never had a group of players that was like, oh boy, another dungeon. When I am running a written module, they're always like, oh god, another dungeon, every single time. So this is almost every book on this list fails this criteria. Just an FYI, every 5th edition book has too many dungeons and they're not good enough. But this is something that I was looking out for.
And that's a nice transition point, which is if you've read enough published adventures, you will know that no published module will work well for you and your players without tweaking and modification. So it's not a question of if you need to to like modify and fix and change some things. It's a question of how much. And the answer to how much is going to depend on, one, how good the written campaign is, and then two, your personal preferences. So no written campaign is perfect, and no written campaign is perfect for every group. It's just a question of degrees. And then when that degree gets too big, it's just no longer worth it to DMs like Rob and myself. And then that knocks it down the tiers. And if you're on the top of the tiers, your book gets sent on Voyager 3 into space for the aliens to see.
Okay, so we have 5 tiers, which are currently labeled S, A, B, C, and F. And if you understand how tiers work, that's pretty self-explanatory. Do we want to get more creative with these tiers, Matt?
Yeah, sure. I think we should, though I know people are dying to get to the adventures. What do we want to call I would say, I'll start off. I would say the S tier, like, these are, like, campaigns you'll talk about forever, right?
Okay.
This is going to be, like, a really, really, really memorable and amazing game that you're going to love to run, love to play in. And, your players will be like, wow, remember that one time in, well, no spoilers, one of the campaigns. How's that for a name?
Okay, great. Unforgettable campaigns.
Okay, that's a better...
Let's just call it the unforgettable tier. Let's make this simple.
Okay, cool.
All right.
What about the A tier?
Our A tier. Let's call this. These are good. These are great, even, but you probably won't run them a second time. Yeah, that they live. You know, they have a special place in your heart and your players' hearts. So let's call them. Let's call this let's call this the Paragon tier.
Okay, the Paragon tier. For me, these are campaigns that, with just a few minor tweaks, they're going to work great. But, they probably won't need a year of work to get them to work. And, maybe they won't be the most amazing campaign of all time, but they'll be so good that maybe your players won't talk about them for the rest of your life, but for a long time.
So B, I've kind of been thinking of as, as your real lunch pail campaigns, workmanlike. You had to put some effort in. There were some problems, but there was a lot of good, and you liked them, and they're real, craftsmen. You're not gonna necessarily put these on a pedestal in a museum or anything like that. But for the working man, they're good enough.
Yeah. That sounds good to me. Like, for me, it's often they're ones that, you're going to have to put a lot more work in, a major rework for them to be good. Unlike maybe the ones in the A and S tier. What about C tier? I would say that, like, there's probably stuff to salvage here, but this is getting into the territory of this is not worth the effort to fix it up. What do you think?
I mean, I was gonna call them fixer-uppers, which can kind of be a mixed bag. Sometimes a fixer-upper isn't worth a fixer-uppering.
A fixer-upper, right? Yeah, you might have to trash this one, but hopefully, if you really like it, right, you can do it. And then F tier, this is probably the land of, like, there's no way to salvage these. We'll probably have to put some lazy cash grabs down here.
I mean, yeah, the only thing that's going to make it here, and I don't know what to call this yet, but, like, it's things that I felt insulted reading. Like, I felt like my time wasters, actually, is what I would call this.
Okay.
Even the ones in the B and C tiers that I didn't like, I didn't feel like they were a huge waste of time to read, but there's a couple that I wish I hadn't read, and that's rare because I'm easily amused, and
yeah.
If I felt like there's nothing to enjoy about a book, that's pretty bad.
Yeah. Okay, I like that. Ones that insult either our intelligence, our 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 ability to stomach references and jokes, our ability to believe that this would actually work with player characters. All right, Rob. I'm thinking we should probably go, I don't know, we could go in alphabetical order. We could go, I was thinking reverse chronological order.
You suggested reverse chronological, so let's do that and just work backwards from the present.
Okay. Our first one is actually one that if you subscribe to our Patreon, you can listen to a whole hour and 10 minutes of us discussing quests from the Infinite Staircase, which is 6 adventures that are republished, all of them from the early 80s.
So I forgot to mention this when we were talking about our criteria, but like because I place so much of a premium on being interesting and unique, it is almost impossible for one of these republished anthologies to be rated higher than maybe a B in my tier list. And maybe, Matt, you disagree, but like even there are a couple of these, and Wizards has done it a few times, that I liked. But even the ones that I liked, I'm like, I can't really recommend this too highly. So
yeah. So this one, in my opinion, has 2 pretty good modules, 2 very middling modules, and 2 ones that I absolutely think are trash. The 2 like pretty good ones are the Lost City and the Beyond the Crystal Cave. So it's got 2 okay ones, but yeah, this is firmly in like maybe you should just buy those 2 modules on the DM's Guild.
This one for me, it's not an F, but I would struggle to put it above a C. I think this is a fixer-upper at best.
This is exactly what we meant by the C tier. Yeah. It's a fixer-upper.
Fixer-upper. There's good parts in it, and I didn't dislike reading it, but like I can't recommend it too much. It's just too much that you have to fiddle with. If you just want one of the adventures, just buy one of the adventures. Yeah. Yeah.
I think they made Beyond the Crystal Cave a little better. I think they made The Lost City worse. And as we discussed on our episode, they made Expedition of the Barrier Peaks way more annoying.
A lot worse.
Yeah. So sorry about that. And I guess on the modules, we should also talk about the framing device. This one has the absolute worst framing device of any of the anthology adventures.
I
should have labeled the anthology ones, but you'll get it as we're talking.
You'll figure it out. Fortunately, it was short, but the framing device part of Quest from the Infinite Staircase did feel insulting to me. But that's not enough to sink it to insult tier because the rest of it was fine.
Yeah. So our Quest from the Infinite Staircase, it is placed in the C tier. We reserve the right to adjust these up and down as we
correct.
Get the other ones to compare them to.
We may change this as we go, but that feels right for right now.
Okay. All right. On to Vecna, Eve of Ruin. This is a 10 through 11 level adventure. It is one of the big ones, an ultimate, plane spanning race of a series of 7 fetch quests to stop Vecna from remaking the universe. We did a whole episode on this one. Rob, what are your thoughts on Vecna, Eve of Ruin?
Well, Matt, let me know if you think that I am being too harsh, but this is one of the ones that I was considering solidly an F tier. I think that this was an insult to me and to you, to everyone who spent money on it, to the entire Dungeons & Dragons community, to all of the effort that they put into seeding this adventure. I was listening to our old episodes about other adventures, and we'll get to them, and reminding myself all the times that obelisks were there. They were hinted at being very obviously a part of Vecna's big plan, which went nowhere. If they're going to do some glup shitofication of multiversing around and then not have a big Infinity War payoff, then what the fuck's the point? Anyway, This was lazy. There's not a lot to borrow from. It's not very well written. It has nothing. It has no memorable NPCs, locations, monsters. It's a big wet fart, in my opinion. F.
Yeah, this one is F tier for me as well, just because it's it's a failure conceptually of like what makes like an adventure good. It doesn't play into the fantasy of what fighting a Vecna or a Vecna cult could be like. Structurally, it's a boring, repetitive MacGuffin fetch quest. It's not good adventure module writing. A lot of these fetch quests, as Rob mentioned, are not interesting. It's not a good high-level adventure. The like plot twists don't make sense. The NPCs could solve it together. The final fight and like depiction of it is boring. The obvious like thing sitting on the table there about Vecna and Kasa's relationship is completely underdeveloped. It is. I put together, I think, a 17-page suggestion for revisions.
I remember
and
this.
If you need
you put too much effort into this.
Pages,
yes.
We'll probably add
theoretical
links.
Good story about this, but like
it's not in this module.
It's not in this module.
So.
Yeah.
So
this was
if
bummer.
you're interested in saving this, we're bummed this one wasn't better. We'll put a link in the show notes to my suggestions for the remix and explanations for why a lot doesn't work. Rob, so one of the things I put together is a list of it's really hard to tell how popular these ones are. But I looked at who subscribes to subreddits based on these adventures. And of the new adventures, this one by far is the most popular with around 1,900 subscribers, which, again, it just came out. So, that's not a lot of subscribers, but still for the new ones, it's one of the more popular ones. So people want the sad thing about this one is the concept is great. Everything else fails about this one.
Yeah.
Okay.
All right.
On from Vecna. Turn of Fortune's Wheel. This is the adventure that came in the Planescape campaign setting. And if I remember correctly, this is one where you also go on very, very short quests all around the gate towns of the Outlands. And so this one is like very similar to Vecna Eve of Ruin in that every like section is like a very short chapter. This one also is much less developed because this is like a 90-page adventure. And as we discussed in our episode on this one, the villain's plan doesn't make any sense, and like everything would be better if the players just like left.
Yeah. So this is weird because it is a lot like Vecna Eve of Ruin. You're going on a big they really thought they had something with the multiverse. Like they really thought they were going to be able to cash in on that Marvel multiverse wave, not realizing that everybody was already tired of multiverses, and also they did it badly. But yeah, your players are glitches and they're in Sigil and Matt, I have to like catch myself on this one because like I need to be aware of the ones where I have personal investment in the setting or something.
We love Planescape so much.
Planescape. So like just because I'm specifically very mad about how they did this, I have to judge semi-fairly. And I mean, it's bad. It's not very good. You're just going on like a stupid theme park to a bunch of gate towns. You're not even going to other planes. I think that there is some that you can steal from this adventure, which is a distinct improvement over Vecna. There are parts that are good. There is at least one part that made me laugh, which was the section entitled Angels in the Outlands, where you play Spireball with angels in the Outlands, which all of this together makes me want to put this in a C tier. I want to put this above F, though I'm willing to be convinced otherwise.
This is tough because the last year, you can tell like people have been busy working on the new edition, is full of bad ones. This one, I think, is solidly F tier in that one encounter. Like, there are way more interesting things in Vecna Eve of Ruin to steal from than that one Angels in the Outfield. I say this one is worse than Vecna Eve of Ruin. I mean, it suffers from being shorter, but the whole like glitch thing.
See, shorter is better. It means I spent less time suffering on this one, Matt. That's
not how much you suffered. This is not a tier list of how much you suffered. This is a tier list of
you know
is
what?
it good.
You know what? I'm on board. I just remembered that Mort is in this, the talking skull from Planescape Torment, and he's annoying, and that made me mad enough that I think this is an F tier. No, Matt, you're right. This is bad. There's actually not really anything good in here. I wanted to be nice, but no, this is bad.
No,
this is a waste.
It sucks. Hey, if you're watching or listening to this, just know there are some of these we actually really really like. It's just been a pretty bad last 2 years.
It has been a pretty bad past 2 years. Okay, so Turn of Fortune Wheel. I think that's right. I think I need to be strict with my grading. This is an F for sure.
Yeah, this is, if Vecna is an F, this one's got to be an F.
That's true.
Okay. So next up we have Phandelver and below : the Shattered Obelisk. This is a 200-page adventure that'll take your players from the beginning to 11th level. This one's a little complicated in that the first half of the Shattered Obelisk is very similar to the very first adventure that we'll talk about here, Lost Mines of Phandelver. But then they add a quest where you have to fight some mind flayers that are going to transform the town into like a terrible farland hellscape. And they've also changed the first part. Rob, I really wanted to like this because, again, I was like kind of interested in the idea of these Netherese obelisks that have been everywhere. This one adds one of those. Instead of having to do with like time travel or something like that, it allows the mind flayers to like take over Phandelver. The second part, the kind of new part, is kind of a race to get 3 fragments, but it's not really a race.
More
None
MacGuffins.
Of this actually, it's more MacGuffins, but the MacGuffins don't actually matter. There are, I think, of all of the adventures I have read, there are more inconsistencies in logic in this one than almost any of the other adventures.
That's really saying something, because there's a lot of adventures with some truly tortured leaps of logic.
And the reason that this one really sucks is because Lost Mine of Phandelver is really good, and they've actually changed a lot of it, and in my opinion, kind of made it worse. From the very first encounter to all of the kind of sandboxy elements that kind of get you through the second stage of the campaign, this one's a real disappointment. Not only does it not continue I think it no spoilers for Lost Mine, but it's pretty good. Doesn't pretty continue good. That goodness. It goes straight to really, really boring, really, really railroady, and really just baffling, like how the thing actually works. Like there's one thing where you have to find 3 fragments of an obelisk. One's in a mine. And it's like, how did it get there? It was put there by a wizard. That's all it literally says. The second is right next to a mind flayer who, again, wants this MacGuffin. There's a tower in his way. He's a hyper-intelligent mind flayer. He hasn't figured out how to get around the tower. It just doesn't make any sense. It's a lot of mines. Instead of Mine of Phandelver, there's mines.
Matt, it came out in September 19th of 2023, which is... within striking distance of the release of Baldur's Gate
9/11. Yeah.
And I am the one who is wondering if this was like rushed to get out at the same time as Baldur's Gate 3 and ride that Mind Flayer wave.
Yeah. Maybe that was it. This, to me, reeks of shitty cash grab of people being like, 1, Mind Flayers, 2, Obelisks, 3, we know Lost Mine is good, maybe I'll buy this. I would say never get this one, only get the original Lost Mines, because they've really made it worse. And also they have this habit that I noticed in both Vecna, or not Vecna, Eve of Ruin, Turn of Fortune Wheel, and this one, where the final encounters take place not in a dungeon or a map location, but a series of set piece encounters where there's just the map of the set piece, and you just go from one to another in a straight line, and there are no like player choices or investigation. This one really start this. Rob, I'm going to say this one, it's hard to rank it because it does have some of the good parts of Lost Mines of Phandelver, but like making it worse feels like a desecration and an insult to me. So I don't really know where to put this one. I would say somewhere in the.
It sounds like an F to me.
F
I know that we're starting out with like a real like negative collection, but I promise you, listeners, watchers, they will not all be Fs.
I will say it's better than Planescape just because of the original parts of Lost Mine that are in there. But again,
I mean, this
with
is our
the
criteria,
caveat,
Matt. If you felt insulted reading it, and it sounds like you did, then it's an F.
I was incredibly insulted.
That's the rule. So okay.
Okay.
We divided and conquered some of these. So Matt had Phandelver and below, and now he's got Keys from the Golden Vault, which I did read part of, and we discussed reviewing, but I think we were both very weary of 5th edition, and then a bunch of other things happened, so we never got to it. But we did mean to talk about it. So
this
Matt,
is
tell us about Keys from the Golden Vault.
This is another anthology adventure, right? And this one has a ton of pretty short, they could be 1 or 2 shot anthologies. I believe there's 13 in total, and they're themed around heists. And Rob and I both love planning, running, playing in heists. It's one of our favorite things. Here's the good and the bad of this adventure, is that there are, just like all of the anthologies, some really shining star adventures here. Some really great heists that you can either tweak, or some of them you can honestly run as they are, and they're quite great. One of the things that really sucks is the framing device. I didn't dig it all. You kind of work for a Mission Impossible organization that only has the loosest connections. You can kind of tell this anthology was all written by different writers, and it's not going to work as a whole adventure. But for plopping and other things, it's great. One of the sad things, though, is you could easily cut one of these heists and use that space to have advice on how do you run heists, because it's not something that's in the DMG for 5th edition, and there's a lot of assumptions here that I think people aren't going to know. However, if you know how to run heists, if you know how to say, okay, you got to have this gathering information phase, this planning phase, you got to know something about the score, there's some really good ones here. I would say there is one that is S tier in itself. There's probably 3, and that's the Merkstone, the very first one. There are 3 or 4 that are solid A tier. The Stygian Gambit, Masterpiece Imbroglio, and Talkworth's Clockworks. There are some here that are really, really stinkers that are, and I mean this not only because they're bad, but because they're technically not heists. They're just dungeon crawls, like Reach for the Stars and Sidorant's Vault and Shard of the Accused that are like, hey, that one's just a mystery. It can't really work as a heist. There's no way for players to plan or things. But I would say most of the other ones are solid B tier. So I would say overall, this is an okay anthology, and all of them being very short really helps, because if one sucks, you can kind of chunk it.
Okay. I'm trusting you on this one, Matt. Tell us where to put it.
Okay, well, I'm just comparing it to other anthologies. I would say it's better than the Infinite Staircase. I don't know if that's at the top of C tier or B tier.
No,
I'm going to say let's put in B tier right now, because I really enjoyed reading it.
See, that sounds good. Let's put it in B tier. That sounds like a B tier to me.
Great. Now I just have to find the cover of it. Everyone in the watching the video shouting at me, there it is, there it is. I can't see it. Here it is. Keys from the Golden Vault, our first B tier.
All right. Next up, we have Dragonlance. Shadow of the Dragon Queen came out in December of 22. This was much anticipated. This was a big deal. We had not seen any new Dragonlance in a decade or more, and suddenly, that stopper was uncorked, and we had a whole bunch. And this
is another one where the hype gets in the way of the actual adventure, right?
100%.
Just like Turn of Fortune wheels, like it's plane hopping. Actually, you spend most of your time on one plane. This one was hyped as a war campaign. There's a couple battles. I did not like the execution of this one. The thing that really holds this one back is his extreme railroadiness. The thing that's cool about this one is I think there is a lot you can do to kind of loosen it up, give players a lot more freedom and choice in how to fight and execute this war. It means that, it's going to be you doing a lot of the writing and work as opposed to the module. That's my opinion.
Yeah, I expected... Here's the thing. I wouldn't have liked this, but I expected some ambitious, rules about mass combat or even a tie-in with the Dragonlance board game, which I would have hated.
Well, there is a tie-in to the board game, and that's where the rules for mass combat got shunted.
Sorry, they
which
did
sucks.
Do this. Sorry, they did do that. I forgot. I had memory hold that. So that was bad, but that does fit in unique and interesting, which is why I don't have a deep seething hatred for this campaign. Matt is right, though. That's all kind of a sidebar to what is a pretty standard railroad D&D style adventure. Go here, fight this guy. Go here, get this thing. Go here because a powerful NPC told you to. Blah, 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 blah. Big fight with dragons at the end. It's not the most boring version of that, and it comes, in a well-designed package with some cool art and, I don't know. I can't ever see myself running this. I can see myself borrowing parts of it, and there are bits of it that are somewhat interesting, but in general, the bill of goods that we were presented was not what we got. It was not like a big sweeping war campaign with a different focus, a different emphasis, lots of mass combat. There's a little bit, and it didn't really matter. And so that
go
is
listen
kind of
to our full
episode
on this with Megan, who has also written several supplements and kind of to beef up and fix some of the weaker parts of this adventure. For me, Rob, this one is I don't know if it's better than Vecna Eve of Ruin. It's definitely C or F tier. I could see it somewhere on the line between those.
I don't feel insulted by this one. It needs a lot of work. If you love Dragonlance, I think that there is something that you can salvage from this. If you don't, I would not bother.
All right. Let's put it at the bottom of C tier and move on from Kryn. Which we should note is maybe not Rob and I's either of our favorite worlds. So, if you really love Kryn, you might like this one more.
You might like this better than we did, yeah.
Which takes us from there to Light. Light of Xaryxis.
Matt forgot what we were reading, and now he's
one.
upset because it's Light of Xaryxis, which was part of the Spelljammer box set. The 3-part adventure / setting book / whatever. Light of Xaryxis, wild space. Matt, why don't you like this? Why don't you love?
Okay. So this is a great concept. The players, have they got to stop an evil empire. They have a ship. They travel. They do actually travel around through space.
Yes.
However, it is, again, it's one of the box set adventures, so it's much, much shorter. There's much less space to do things. The connective tissue is you have to do this next thing, and then this next thing happens. I would say that many of the encounters in this are actually quite good and quite interesting. It's the way that players are allowed to do things and choose stuff. The sort of core concept of Spelljammer, which is you're in charge of your own ship, never really happens because there's always someone telling players exactly what to do. However, despite this, I do think there's a lot that's fixable. The railroad can easily be knocked away, and as long as the players have the goal, hey, stop this evil empire, there's stuff you can do with that.
This one meets some of my criteria in that it has some memorable characters and locations and items. There's a lot of parts of this that are fun. Some of the spell jamming when you get to do it is super neat. There's some great like wild space art, like it's very evocative, but it is mostly like a big stupid railroad the villains don't make any sense and the plot doesn't really make any sense. But there's a lot I think I like about this that could be borrowed and could be salvaged. So we have
a whole episode on this one, just FYI. Feel free to listen to that.
My main disappointment about this one was that like it just gave me a taste of like what could have been,
right?
Like what
so close.
What a better adventure there might be in here. This is one where I was motivated to like fix it and do something different.
This is the definition of a fixer-upper, and I would say this is on the higher end. This
is a high C, maybe even a B, but let's put it in C for now.
Is it above Dragonlance, Shadow of the Dragon Queen?
Absolutely. I think it's above it. I would put this in Lunch Pail, even though we called it a fixer-upper. We can leave it in Lunch Pail for now, but I think this is one of...
We reserve the right to readjust.
Yeah. But I did like a lot of... Like, there's instead of like one thing, there's several things that I can praise about this that were fun. It was short, it didn't make any sense, and it wasn't well written, but there were good ideas, and I could work with this. Much easier than I could work with any of the others we've discussed.
Speaking of the others, the next one is Dragon of Stormwreck Island. So this one is another one of our...
wrong. It's Dragons of Stormwreck Isle.
Sorry, there's also another starter set called Dragon of Icespire Peak.
We're an hour in, and we've got like most of them left. I'm already getting punchy. So, listeners, I was
getting angry. Hope you're in for the long haul as we get spicier and spicier.
But yeah, Dragons of Stormwreck Isle. This was a new one, or newish one. Yeah.
Right, this one comes in one of the starter sets, the 2022 starter set. It's very short, right? It's a 60-page adventure in 4 short parts that takes players from 1 to 3. On this one, you really have to compare it to other starting kind of adventures that start at 1 level or are shorter. This one, in my opinion, while it does have 2 interesting, it's got 3 parts, 2 of them are kind of interesting, it in no way compares to Lost Mine of Phandelver. Rob, can I give you an example so you'll believe me? In Lost Mine of Phandelver, the players are given a clear goal as a party. In this one, they're given goals as individuals. You can already see that's maybe not as good. It's fine to have both, but you should always have that party goal. Lost Mine of Phandelver has the first encounter. The players discover a mysterious, destroyed wagon, right? And they investigate it, and there's a sense of foreboding. They can maybe spot an ambush coming. In this one, the players arrive on the titular isle. They get out of their boat, and 3 zombies walk towards them. And that's it. And you're not really given, they have to go talk to someone to figure out why these zombies are attacking. Like, there's no clues on the zombies to what's going on here. There's nothing to follow up on. It's like, hey, now I know those zombies were interesting, but you better go talk to this very important and kindly NPC who is actually a very powerful dragon that could solve all your problems for you, but won't for no apparent reason. You need to go do that. I will say the redeeming thing is that if everything is so on rails that if you were afraid of running a campaign not being on rails, then that's okay. The final chapter has like some ability for players to like branch out, have different approaches, solve things. Like there's things they can do in this last dungeon. The other 2 are pretty forgettable. I will also point out that many of the art references the 80s D&D cartoon, which is another glup shitification reference that makes me mad. This might be the worst of the 3 starting adventures.
All right, Matt, where do we put it?
I don't know if I'm completely insulted, because you could change some things. You would have to work very, very hard, and it's very, very short, so you could actually get it done. So it's either at the top of F tier because I was only insulted a little bit, or at the very bottom of C tier.
Well,
let's put it at the bottom of C tier tomorrow. Okay.
Okay,
All
that's
right.
Dragons of Stormwreck Isle.
C tier. All right, now we're on to another anthology, Journeys Through the Radiant Citadel.
This is another one that we have a whole episode on, which you can listen to. This is our beautiful neolib utopia where the social democrats run a floating crystal in space and you go on adventures from it.
Yes. Sadly, this actually framing device is better than two of our other framing devices.
We complained so much about it, but now we have experienced many worse framing devices.
Right. But I want to move past the framing device because some of the short modules in Journeys to the Radiant or Through the Radiant Citadel either have concepts or execution that are so good that on their own they're S tier. Some of them are very bad, but many of them are so good.
Some of my favorite adventures ever are in this. This is one of the ones where they
Written in Blood. Remember that one?
Written in Blood. This is one of the ones where they got new writers to contribute to Quest of the Radiant Citadel, often non-white writers, and it shows. There's just a real breath of fresh air. Written in Blood, so good.
Between Tangled Roots, remember the Dragon Sky Bridges and this open-ended quest your characters can go on?
Yes. I loved, this was a mixed bag, but I actually loved The Fiend of Hollow Mine, which was it had a bunch of really cool people, monsters, a great overall adventure, excellent theme. Actually, I don't know that there were any in this that I didn't.
The other Mind one was really bad.
Oh, that's right.
The Gold for Fools and Princes.
That's right. That one was kind of a so-so. That's right.
I really like
Mine was San Lan, which was amazing. Written in Blood was Written in Blood.
Shadow of the Sun.
Sorry, I was just remembering one of the best horror adventures I have ever read.
Yes.
So good.
Yes.
Oh yeah.
I will second that. Oh yeah, you can see how you would fix up a Shadow in the Sun and how it could be amazing, even though as written it doesn't quite give players any options at all. Again, that one was another sock dim brain adventure, but the Night Seas Sucker was one of my favorite. That one would be unforgettable tier. I would say the highs of this one are so high, and obviously you're not going to have an anthology with this many things without having some duds.
Yeah, I'd say there's only one or two duds, and only one of them is really bad. And we make fun of the framing device, but it sort of doesn't matter. It's not important. It doesn't detract from the adventure. I would say that there's so much to like in this. I think this is at least, I would say this is solid A tier. This is an A tier, our best anthology yet. One of my favorites.
Yeah.
Maybe my
favorite.
Let's
put it in A tier for now.
Okay.
Could go higher, could go lower, but I would say A tier for Journeys of the Radiant Citadel is perfectly fine.
All right.
Which brings us...
Take a quick break.
To a quick break.
Another drink, and then we'll go.
All right. Everyone, let's grab a beer and then continue on with our tier list. Just while Rob's getting his drink, updating everyone on the stats. So far, we don't have any S tiers. We have in the A tier, Journeys Through the Radiant Citadel. B tier, Keys from the Golden Vault and Spelljammer Adventures in Space. That's Light of Xaryxis. C tier, Quests from the Infinite Staircase. Dragonlance, Shadow of the Dragon Queen, Dragon of Stormwreck Isle, and the F tier, we have Vecna, Eve of Ruin, the Shattered Obelisk, and Planescape, A Turn of Fortune's Wheel. Stay tuned.
You better roll them dice. You never know if it could change your life. Take a chance, you're neither wrong or right. You never know if you don't roll them dice. You better roll them dice. You never know if it'll change your life. Take a chance,
well, Rob, that was a fun first third of our adventure talking.
All right.
How you doing? Let's do a little check-in. How are you feeling?
You know what? I'm feeling good. I honestly feel good because we've gotten most of my least favorites out of the way. So it's kind of all uphill from here. It's all smooth sailing. That's not true. There's some not great ones coming up, but there's some that I am excited to talk about, at least in brief. So let's dig in.
Okay.
How about you, Matt? How are you doing?
Thanks for asking, Rob. I'm doing okay. I remember that the last couple years have had some adventures that have been very infuriating for me to read, and that I can see their potential and their execution isn't there. I'm reminded that actually some of them were not all that bad. So,
okay.
And speaking of ones that may not be all that bad, our next adventure is one that is not entirely written by Wizards of the Coast, and that is Critical Role: Call of the Netherdeep.
Yeah, so this doesn't speak to the adventure at all, but I completely forgot that this existed. I could not remember anything about this adventure when
we did a entire 80-minute episode.
I know, and I was like, how is it possible that I talked about this for 80 minutes and I can't remember? But then I listened to a bit of it and I started reading it and it came back. So it was not that this was bad. I just we've just done so many and this one just sort of fell out of my brain. But it is a Critical Role adventure, and there are some hallmarks of Critical Role upon it. And
Exandria.
It's in Exandria.
Vestiges of divergence.
And
what if the moon was bad?
What if the moon was evil? That's right.
It's like a Stephen King-ass plot. I love it. I mean, what a great... Listen, if you steal nothing else, just write on your adventure planning sheet, moon equals evil? ? There you go. Go from there.
This is an interesting adventure. I like... Critical Role always feels like a breath of fresh air. They have a different set of priorities when it comes to writing and playing adventures, so I'm not always as interested in the things that they include as I might be, but I really appreciate what they do.
The rival system for me was a real interesting idea.
Was
and a great thing to steal.
Very easy to borrow, worth the price of admission alone. The problem with this adventure, and this gets to Matt, one of your criteria, is that the players are not really the stars, the star, or even the protagonist. The protagonist is in fact this guy named Elixion, the Apotheon, which is cool. That's a cool name, a cool concept. He's, his despair is so deep.
It's so much cooler. Our names are Rob and Matt. His name is Elixion, the Apotheon, or whatever. We're never going to compete with this guy. Let's go home.
Amazing hero from the time of legends is so... His despair is so great that he's infecting the world or something, and you have a 3-part Final Fantasy boss battle with him where he transforms into a horrible bug and then a terrifying angel. And it's cool. It's just the whole adventure suffers because you're just kind of following in his footsteps.
Yeah. I think the concepts of destiny in this were pretty cool. The concept, the way the rival party is used is pretty cool. The connective tissue, again, is also a weak point. There are parts where players are not really given a lot of options for how to proceed other than wait for the person to kind of tell you where to go. The whole opening conceit of the adventure, relying on players or their rivals to touch a thing, is there's a lot of weakness in this in how to get from point A to B, but some of the middle parts, right? I think were really, really fun. The whole demon fighting fortress was very cool.
Yeah, there's a lot of cool set pieces. The problem is that Matt says, it doesn't really make sense how they connect to each other. This is a good one though. I think this is a good adventure. I would put this in lunch pail.
This is the definition of a lunch pail. It needs some work, right? Like all adventures do, more than maybe average, but the concepts here, they're not mind-blowing, but they're good concepts.
They're strong.
Better than Spelljammer, worse than Spelljammer?
Better than
Undecided
Spelljammer.
for now?
Better than Spelljammer, okay. but definitely the same tier, I think.
Yeah. Okay, cool. Thanks, Critical Role, for doing an adventure. And if you really like Exandria, that's, I think, another bonus for this one.
Yeah, this is a good Exandria book. We did a whole episode on Exandria as a setting. I like it. I don't know if we're putting that in a tier. That's like a solidly middle tier for me.
Right.
I don't hate it. I don't love it. So, but if you do love Exandria, if you love Critical Role, and you want to play in the setting but not like follow in their footsteps, Call of the Netherdeep is good. This will give you the feel of a Critical Role campaign without, you having to just like do a Critical Role campaign. I think this is good.
Yeah. All right. Critical Role, Call of the Netherdeep, B tier, and that brings us to Strixhaven, a curriculum of chaos. What is this, me writing my syllabus before the school year? Anyway, so Strixhaven is, I think, our one and only Magic the Gathering setting. This one is shorter. It's just over 100 pages, so keep that in mind when we're comparing it to these nearly 300-page monstrosities. Rob, for me, this is in the category of this shouldn't be a D&D campaign. You should use some other system. Because it's all about like being and living in school and like developing these relationships and stuff when it's at its best, right? When it's at its worst, it's a series of like linear like quests that you have to do.
I mean, it has the structure of a Harry Potter book, and that the first like 2/3 of it is you're hanging out with your friends, you're going to class, you're trying to win the Strixhaven, pickleball competition. Whatever. Anyway, it's like
right, it's Magic pickleball,
But it's fun. And Matt's right. Like this is a decent campaign idea. It's a great campaign idea for a different setting. Like you're not really interacting with D&D or D&D's system or mechanics for most of this, which is good because if you were, that wouldn't be a very fun school campaign. And then at the end, it's like, oh, oops, here's a bad guy. Go to a bunch of places, go to a dungeon, fight a bad guy.
Bad guy's plan doesn't make any sense. The players aren't really given a chance to like investigate or interact or use their own initiative, which is it's a real missed opportunity because, having an open-ended like, hey, the first chunk of our campaign will take place over a whole year. You have a ton of freedom to pursue your own goals, all have some loose notes, improvise some scenes. You're not given a lot to work with that. And then a lot of the other stuff is a lot of telling, not showing, where it's like, you go to class, make a class check, right? Instead of giving you a framework for making up, hey, a dramatic scene's going to happen in one of your classes. Let's set the stakes here and stuff like that. Again, these are things that a lot of game systems do very well. D&D does not. We should also mention this of all the Magic settings, I think is the one that interests me the most. But however, you have to change it from a Magic playing card setting into like an interactive and fully fleshed out world, and they did not do that work.
No, and they don't want to make it easy for you, presumably because the MTG brand manager is like, you can't do that. You're not allowed to make any changes to.
And they have $10 billion in D&D team. Like I'm pretty sure is like 3 guys and maybe 1 woman.
Yeah.
I don't know, in a temporary. If it was a school, they would be in the portable building.
They'd be in the portable building. There's some fun exams, like rules for exams that the PCs have to take to pass. I thought they were
like these.
Matt did like them.
They're just stupid checks. They're not. They're not interactive. They're jokes, but they're not jokes your players create through play. They're jokes you tell as the DM. In my opinion, Rob liked them. That's fine, right? See, different opinions.
Entertaining to run, but I can entertain a different possibility.
And I can see how they would be fun to run. It's important we occasionally have a different opinion.
We do occasionally disagree.
Really.
I do think that this is solidly C tier, though. Like it is a fixer-upper, largely because there's not much here. Matt wants to put it in F tier, I think.
I want to put it in F tier. I'm so insulted of this. I will put it at the top of F tier or the bottom of C tier.
I put it in F tier. I think it should be an F tier because like there's really not anything here. There's not actually an adventure here. I don't feel insulted as much because, again, I keep grading on a curve for the ones that didn't give me as much suffering. But really, like, by our criteria, there's not even really an adventure to modify. There's nothing really to work with. There is some stuff that's interesting in here, which is not true of some of the other F tier adventures, but that's not enough to rescue it from bottom tier. I agree.
No. Like, I would run this in a completely different system. I would make like a Magic version of Masks, or you could use Kids on Broom if you like that system, or a modified version of the like Things from the Flood system. I would use any other system, and I would also just, the adventures do not give the players the needed stuff to explore. I would say it is probably at the top of F tier, and that there were some cool NPCs. And listen,
that's
if
right,
you want to run a Magic School campaign, there's probably stuff for you to steal from here. And I think
feels
a
like
lot
a shame
of
to
people
put
do.
it in the same tier because there is not a single thing that I would take from Vecna. But there are some things I would take from Strixhaven. I don't know. Maybe we need an even lower tier for.
Here's Rob. Alert! This is the highest adventure in subscribers we've put in F tier. People like the idea of Strixhaven, whether they've run it or not. Of course, my stats can't tell, but there are over 5,000 subscribers to the Strixhaven.
Because it's got that MTG
subreddit.
shine. You know what's funny about this is that like they made noises like they were going to do this for all sorts of Magic the Gathering settings, and then just either lost interest or didn't get, it's just like, it's like funny how like Wizards keeps getting like what I think is like, oh, they're doing a new thing, and then they abandon the thing. Like, it's beautiful.
Yeah.
I love our fail company, our beautiful fail company, Wizards of the Coast.
Succeeding despite themselves. They own a thing. The thing is called the name Dungeons and Dragons. It helps them out a lot. Hey, but occasionally they produce some really good stuff, as you can see. There's even one on the A tier. Speaking of tiers and lists, so Strixhaven went to F tier, and now we're on to Candlekeep Mysteries. It's library time. Or no, wait, did I skip one?
You skipped one, Matt. It's the Wild Beyond the Witchlight.
The Wild Beyond the Witchlight. It's the promise of Feywild and fairy tales. Not exactly the Fey most people think about, but it is in the Feywild.
It is in the Feywild. It definitely was. This is another one where like the hype and the marketing didn't quite match what you were getting. Here's the cool thing about Wild Beyond the Witchlight is that there's very, 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 very little combat. Almost none. In fact, I think you can play this whole campaign without any combat. This was kind of the the thing.
As we said in our episode, that is the promise, the execution of that. Sure. That is with perfect play, you will never take damage. Okay, sure. I mean, again, but there is less combat. Rob is absolutely right.
There's much less combat. There's lots of puzzles and strange NPCs and things to solve and negotiations to happen. What do I want to say? I didn't like this one very much. I got to be honest. I did not enjoy reading this. I do kind of want to give this a
intro.
Boost.
The carnival was very cool.
Carnival was very cool. I want to give this a
needs
boost.
a lot of work to run it, as we said in our episode. But yeah, what do you want to give it a boost for?
Well, just because it was ambitious, and I want to reward. Like I said, my first criteria is it interesting and unique, and this was interesting and unique. And I think that even though it wasn't for me, I thought there was something cool and ambitious here, and I think there's some really good ideas. The beginning and the carnival were great, and then maybe you go somewhere else. So I would put this in. I'd put this in Fixer Upper. I want to put it higher, but I think I
would put it higher than some of our other Fixer Uppers.
This is a high
I think
Fixer
it
Upper.
easily, is it higher than Quests? I don't know. We might reassess that, but it's definitely in the C tier. It is not so bad that it's F tier. I think it really suffers from I think this was maybe one of the first ones where we got our first bit of Glup shitification, where right, a villain that was not
in this
Igwilv. I have nothing against Igwilv as an NPC, but it seems like too much effort went into shoehorning in per story when there are so many more interesting folktale and phase stories to tell. Maybe this is me like just being like, I wanted the war between king whatever and queen whatever, or the Sealy courts fighting each other and stuff like that. But yeah, it's definitely a fixer-upper.
I mean, no, I don't even need to apologize for this. Like,
I always feel like I need to
a
apologize for who I am.
From Gary Gygax's, campaign that has been around since the fucking like early 80s, late 70s. Like, who gives a shit? You need to convince me like why I should care about Igwilf. Like, I don't care about Tosh. I don't care about Igwilf. I don't care about Drist, Doradin, or Elminster. I don't care
about Mordenkainen or any of these other like NPCs.
And to be quite frank, nobody does. Nobody who's not a massive like D&D nerd cares about these people because they have not been given any characterization in 50 years. They're just like, look, it's a guy. You like this guy? It is Glupshido. Anyway, sorry, I'm getting mad.
All right, use your anger and just strike down Glupshido, and you will become more powerful than it has ever been.
All right, let's move on.
All right, so that takes us to Candlekeep Mysteries, another anthology.
That's right.
Anthologies are a nice break because whatever flaws a campaign might have, anthologies almost all of them always have some really good ones.
Yeah,
and
I never get as mad reading these because there's always something to enjoy. Like there's never been one that has all bad books. Or all bad adventures, and Candlekeep Mysteries. It also has, this is barely a framing device, but I like Candlekeep as a setting, and I think
this is a great framing device because it's just a location, right? So you can use it or not use it. I think this framing device. This is
frankly the perfect framing device, in that you can kind of ignore it, but if you want to use it, it's easy. And it's like, here's a little bit about Candlekeep, which never makes me mad. It's like, oh, good, a location and some interesting stuff. And then you're off to the adventures.
So I re-listened to our episodes about this. I think we did 3, including one of those is an interview with one of the
that's right,
authors. And here's where I'm coming from, is while the, average is maybe higher than some of our other anthologies, the mean, the tales of this, like the ones that are like really good aren't as good as some of the ones from Radiant Citadel. But again, there are some good ones. Zerkrin's Zephyrian Tome, the Canopic one at the very end that we read.
Yeah.
Yes.
I liked Candlekeep Deconstruction. I loved Shemshime's Bedtime Rhyme.
I was okay on those two, but I know see why they were. I thought they were middle. Yeah.
We were divided on The Joy of Extra Dimensional Spaces, which I liked a lot.
You really liked. I thought it had some structural flaws. There are some that were not very good. But
I think we both liked
the lows were not as low.
I think we both liked the Book of Inner Alchemy. I liked it. I loved the Book of Inner Alchemy.
I liked the Book of Inner Alchemy.
But I agree with you that this one has sort of like a lower average, even though there's less, like, there's fewer duds, but there's also fewer like standout adventures. Like even the ones, the ones that I liked.
There were no. We could put it in terms of our tier. There were fewer of the adventures here that were like S unforgettable tier, but there were less ones that I felt were just completely unworkable or insulting.
I would put this is a solid lunch pail to me. Like this is workable. It's not, outstanding, but like you're not going to have a hard time like making this work.
I would say that overall there are more usable and like Lunge Pail and Paragon adventures in this than Keys from the Golden Vault. There's greater variety too, because Keys from the Golden Vault, purports to be heists. I would say about 70% of them are heists. I would say this one also has, better overall things. Rob, I actually gonna say this one might actually be a Paragon tier, close to Journeys from the Radiant Citadel. Like,
okay.
I mean, I think it's on the line between those two.
If you want to push
we can
it up,
choose to move.
I just mentioned a bunch that I liked, and you were like, I don't like those. So,
well, they weren't my favorite. Those ones were. The difference is you're saying those are A. I'm saying they're B.
Okay. I think it's like the point is between the two of us, there was a lot for both of us to like, which makes me think that maybe this is actually an A tier.
Yeah. The ones I don't like, I'm saying, are like B adventures.
Right. None of the ones in there that were bad, they were at worst a B. There was nothing that was like a total waste of time. Which is rare because in most of the anthologies, there are at least a couple that are a total waste of time.
Yeah. I think there's also just a lot of adventures in this. I can't remember if there are. Oh, wait, there are 17 which compared to the other ones,
there's more than Journeys and
more for your money.
More than Keys from the Golden Vault. So, like, just bang for your buck, more adventures. Mm-hmm. And the fact that none of them are complete duds, I think that's right. I think this is a Paragon tier. I agree.
The fact that they're also not all themed, I think, makes them more usable.
Yeah.
Again, that you're not going to a new world like in Journeys from the Radiant Citadel, but they're more usable. They're not more usable, easier to plop into the median campaign, whatever that is. Okay, a solid A tier, and that moves us on to Icewind Dale, Rime of the Frostmaiden, which we have not only two, but 3 episodes on. One of those is an interview with one of the writers.
That's right. The friend of the show, Michaela, oh God, I forgot their last name. Anyway, came on and talked to us about this. This was another one where they brought in some new writers, some new ideas. It is all about, you guessed it, folks, Icewind Dale and the ascendance of a ancient demigod of winter.
Burr, it's cold in here. This might be a good adventure. I can't rhyme this. Anyway, I can't rhyme it. Matt. For this atmosphere, sorry. Yes.
This is another one where they toyed with format and framing a little bit. They were a little bit more ambitious. It's not like a huge difference, but it's not very railroady. And there's some.
This is the sandbox adventure.
And it's a real sandbox in that the outcomes of this adventure kind of vary wildly based on the decisions that your characters make. There are, in my opinion, some major missteps, especially in the early chapters, that stop this from being a truly exceptional adventure. But this remains one of my favorites of the entire 5e canon. I think this is really
I've
good.
stolen more from this than probably most of the other, if not all of the other adventures.
Yeah.
It was a joy to read one where, okay, yeah, you could quibble, and I think we have that. Maybe if this one had 2 pages of a flowchart showing where all the hooks from various places lead, it would work so much better. But by now, people have done that work for you, and it's really open-ended what the players can do. They have a clear overall goal. And while a lot of the hype called this kind of like a horror survival adventure, it's not that, but it's still really good. There's a sense of place. The characters have the chance to become the heroes of Icewind Dale, defeat an evil goddess. The end might be kind of like, hey, you gotta go to this dungeon and do a thing, but the first part is really, really good.
First part's really, really good. Strong opening. You fight a giant robot dragon. It's cool. You can permanently set the entire world back 1,500 years if you accidentally use a staff of power on a Netherese orb.
That's the type of fucking with things that more adventures should have.
Yeah. This I think is at least I got to put this in A tier. I wish I could give this an S, but like Matt still puts it an S.
Oh, it's real close, Rob. This is a really good campaign.
It's a really good campaign. I think that it's not quite there.
Yeah, we can reserve the rights to adjust, but I also agree it is at least A tier. Would you say it's better than R2?
This is the best for me. This is the best of any we have discussed so far. This is my favorite adventure.
I agree.
This is of the 5e adventures. Maybe I should caveat this. The ones that are written for 5e. This is top 3. You know, so this is one of my favorites. There's just a few things about the end and a little bit that I didn't love about the beginning that didn't kind of like connect. Like we said, that connective tissue is missing.
Yeah.
But I really, really like this adventure. Really good.
I think why this one works so well is, one, the like character creation is, while still being completely open-ended, allows your players to invest themselves in the 10 towns of Icewind Dale. They all have like interesting secrets. Those secrets often connect to quests that are going on. They all have a clear goal. Hey, it's like always winter and never Christmas. They have things that people want them to do that don't feel meaningless. There aren't any fucking NPCs that could just solve their problems for them that are annoying. The players are the stars of the show.
They're the stars. They really do need to like solve the problem or bad things will happen. Yeah. You can summon a Torask if you want to. You shouldn't, but you can.
Yes, that's great. It trusts players and DMs to kind of let them do stuff, and also has enough guides for how to interpret what might happen when players do whatever they want. Again, the clear joy of role-playing games, doing whatever you want, telling your story.
Yeah. If I can, as an aside, like when they put this out, this felt to me, this was the most hopeful I ever was about 5th edition's like adventure writing, because I was like, oh, they've got some new writers, they're letting them experiment, they're letting them do new things. This is great. This shows real promise. Unfortunately, it did not continue. But I think that if they had kept this energy, right, 5th edition would be in an entirely new place, because love it or I think most people would love it, but like even if you didn't love it, I think they were doing something really interesting, and it was a really unique. It wasn't just like a new shiny version of the same type of adventure that you would have gotten in the 2000s or 90s. It was something else entirely. It was good. Anyway,
there are some real fantastical things, some real wacky things, some real creepy things. In this, it runs a good gamut of tones, which again, in my personal experience, variety is the spice of adventuring life. You do want to switch it up. This one does this great. If I have any caveats of this, it's that it does require more work up front, but you absolutely want to put that work in. Actually, that's not even a caveat. That's just how you should plan a campaign.
Yeah, every I was realizing this when I was putting my list together. Like every one of the ones that I'm going to recommend do require a lot of prep, but good prep, I guess. Like, your preparation will feel useful and not wasted. But yeah, that is
the ones that don't are ones that are like you're doing more prep in the middle of running things to try and make the players go where you want or something. And in the good ones, the players go where you have prepared material because they're choosing to, and they have a bunch of choices in how they want to do it and like what their approach is. And this one, real rewards of player agency, maybe a little less at the very end. I'm trying to think what it would have had to do to get into that S tier. We can come back to that. I might push you to revise this one later, but for now, let's leave it in A tier and move on to Baldur. Or no, wait, is that correct? Yes,
that is right.
Baldur's Gate.
Descent into Avernus. Amusingly, I have no idea why they had like sort of the Baldur's Gate : just I guess to like make you think of Baldur's Gate. I don't know.
Yeah.
Because it doesn't actually take place in Baldur's Gate. In fact, it does start there, but like very little takes place in Baldur's Gate. But that's okay. Whatever. Their naming conventions have always been very fucking weird.
The adventure starts into it. It is tagline. You're going to hell, and you do go to hell.
You go to hell.
And you're in hell for kind of the last third of the adventure. So this is a really cool concept. Cities are getting dragged into hell. Well, I don't know, Rob. What are your thoughts on this? We have an episode on this one.
I really like this one, and you should listen to our episode on it because we talked about it a lot. The beginning. So the city that gets dragged to hell is Elturel, which is a city in the Sword Coast, and it's not the city that you're from. And the first part is kind of annoying and dumb. It doesn't really, in my opinion, have a lot to do with the rest of the adventure. But once you get to Avernus, once you get to hell, there is that Mad Max in hell where you get like an infernal war machine, which Matt and I discussed. You should extend that part as long as you can because it is fun, interesting, compelling. There's cool NPCs, there's cool locations, there's cool war machines.
Right. Redo the execution and kind of create a point crawl map for your players so they can actually, have the freedom of having their own hell motorcycle game.
There's also, Zariel is, in my opinion, a very compelling villain, a very frightening villain, and there's like multiple ways to deal with her. You can try to redeem her, which is very hard. You can try to kill her, which is also hard but less hard. Or you can unleash Tiamat to fight her in the skies above sunken Elturel.
One of the reasons she's a really compelling villain is the adventure, I think, does a pretty good job of introducing her like pretty early on, letting you know about her, letting you uncover lore. It does suffer from a lot of this is conveyed not through player interaction, but a NPC just telling the players. But again, I would say she's probably in the top 3 villains of all of these.
The very obvious thing to do with this, in my opinion, is to either make the players from Elturel or have the city that's dragged to hell be Baldur's Gate or Waterdeep, where they're from. Like, this to me feels like an easy fix. Yeah. And if you did that, this would suddenly be a really good adventure. So
this one is so close to being S tier. It just needs some help with connective tissue, like a couple baffling bits of logic, a couple spots where players are restrained for no reason when they should have the freedom to make all of these interesting choices.
There's no way.
The other weak part is the very beginning.
So I was going to say, there's no way to make this S tier without entirely rewriting chapter 1. And this is a problem because all the other ones that are bad, you just need to fix it. But it's just like, it seems like it's out of a different adventure. Like, it's not aggressively bad on its own. It just it doesn't fit. I would put this in A tier. It's lower on the A tier, but this is an A tier adventure for me. This is one of my top 3 for 5th edition. I really like this. I don't mind the fixes that have to be made because the good parts are really good and there's a lot to be excited about here.
Yeah, you've convinced me. It's A tier. It's nowhere near Candlekeep, Icewind Dale.
It's not.
But it is. The concept is even better, and while there's lots of fails to the execution, they can be fixed, right?
Yeah.
And that's it is. It's
part
not.
of the thing is you can just.
It's not 6 months of work to fix them. It's probably a day of planning.
Right. It's an easy fix relative. This would be to me disappointing, but you could just cut the entire first chapter, which sucks and is boring, and just have your players start at a higher level.
Right.
And pick up, and then it would be
or throw in your own adventure, Lost Minds, something like that.
Exactly. It would instantly be twice as good. And that's, to me, that feels like such an easy fix.
All right, we're really going. We're doing some good adventures here. I'm feeling good.
How are we feeling about the next one, Matt? About Dragons of Icespire Peak.
Dragons of Icespire Peak. So this is another one that came in a starter set. So like a little box you can buy at Target that is a short rule book.
Oh, I forgot. This was the one that they put in the big box stores. This was a big deal. Mm-hmm. I don't really know how that turned out.
Okay, so I think the rule book, I actually, we usually own the digital copies of these. I own the physical one. This is like a pretty good starter rule book, but that's here nor there for our tier rule list. So all all starter sets must be measured against the OG. And
right.
like many
I
of
mean,
this
sorry,
one,
if you've already got Lost Mind of Phandelver, and it's good, then if you make a new one, it should be at least as good because it's going to be compared to the original.
So this one is set in Phandelver, but unlike Lost Minds, which gives your players an exciting first hook and like, you know, a sandbox to play around in, but maybe an ultimate goal or several ultimate goals, this one is a series of very, very small quests. It's set in Phandelver, and the kind of connective tissue is the mayor of Phandelver just, you know, tells the players to go do a thing. They come back. He tells them to do another thing. So not all of these are bad. Some are more on the rails than others. Some are really, really bad, but some are okay. They also do a bad job of linking them to each other, right? So, like, if you build a quest hub, Rob, and you have your players go on one quest, right, they'll often find clues for other quests and then want to go do those on their own. This, like, tries to make you not do that so that they have to come back to their quest giver. However, again, the redeeming part is some of the quests, shorter quests, are pretty decent and pretty okay. And because it's set in Phandelver and these are like take or leave quests, if you got this in addition to Lost Minds of Phandelver, you can absolutely throw in some of the better ones in this. It's like the opposite mirror universe, Phandelver and below Shattered Obelisk, whereas that adventure makes Lost Minds of Phandelver worse. This one makes Lost Minds of Phandelver better.
Interesting.
Yeah, so that's my take on this particular starter set.
Okay. So where do you want to put this, Matt?
It's really hard to rank these, so keep that in mind when you judge our final tier list for starting adventures. So I know it's better than Shattered Obelisk. It didn't exalt me, and it's way better than Dragon of Stormwreck Island. I would say, you know, it's stuff to steal from. It is not for running one after another. Do not do this. So I would say it's at the upper range of the C tier. I would say it's probably better than our Dragonlance adventure. That's about where I would have this one land.
Okay.
All right. Dragons of Icespire Peak. There you go. Plopped firmly in the middle of the C tier.
Fixer-upper.
Way better than Stormwreck Island, but again, do not get this as your starter adventure, only as a supplement.
Okay. On to Ghosts of Saltmarsh, another anthology.
So, we've talked about several anthologies now. And of all of the anthologies, we've had a couple with some really shitty framing devices, one with an okay one. This one's my favorite framing device because we're given an entire town full of NPCs and a map of the surrounding area, things that are going on. This is a great framing device. It's a great adventure hub.
This is the only one of the anthologies we've talked about, and maybe of all of them, period, where I have used and would use the framing device and run them as presented.
Yeah.
You don't have to.
I have as well. Yeah.
But I actually think this is a real testament to this book. This is the ideal form of an anthology, right? If you are going to resurrect a bunch of adventures from previous decades, tie them together and make it work. And they've done a really good job here. I really like...
These are all previously published adventures, some from the recent past, some that are very, very old. But they really did make them all better by giving us ship rules and this like great hub for adventure.
Hub, hexes. This is really, really good. This also includes some of my very favorite adventures of all time. Salvage Operation is again, you know, fuck you, Mike Merles, but it is a really good adventure. I have to give him credit. This is clever. I love it. I've run it twice. One of my most memorable character deaths happened here. I love Salvage Operation. I love the original, the
very first one is a great adventure.
Sinister Secret of Saltmarsh is great.
The Styes
is really good. There are no duds here. Not all of them I love as much, But I think all of these are pretty good, and I do think they sort of like tie together pretty well.
I remember the Abbey one being really boring.
Abbey's kind of boring, but it's not like aggressively boring. It's just kind of like, eh.
There's like a great concept with the one with the lizard folk and the Swaggin.
Yes,
the actual execution, is a little. It's like you don't need the hugest dungeon of the Swaggin to run this, but you make that little change. We have a whole episode on.
We do,
on
and that one, everything about this, like I was like either you can either like fix it or just cut it. Like I think I was like I wouldn't run the like Isle of the Abbey one, and there were some changes I would make to Tamarot's Fate. Anyway, this is really really good. This is a solid A tier to me. I would put this in A tier.
I would never run any of the other anthologies. So they're all set up kind of for better or worse, where you can run the adventures one after another. Mm-hmm. I would never do that, even with ones I really like Journeys Through the Radiant Citadel and Candlekeep. I would not do that.
Right.
I would do that with this one. And
this
in fact, I have run two of them back to back.
My campaign petered out after Danger at Dunwater, but I was running them, one after the other, and it was working. I really, really liked it. Yeah.
Does that mean this is a better A-tier adventure than Journeys and Candlekeep?
I would put this above our other anthologies. If you want to fight me on that, that's okay. I'm
fine with that.
I think this is my favorite anthology, and the best of the anthologies that we've discussed, in my opinion.
It has the best supplementary material and hub. And if it's really hard to compare a range of adventures because they're by different authors and you're completely disconnected from each other, just kind of loosely tied together by this book. So how do you compare them? I think the criteria of I would actually run these back to back to back is a good tiebreaker.
I think it's a good tiebreaker. I agree.
Yeah. Still looking at you, Icewind Dale. Man, Maybe because this is this would have probably been my top of the A tier or close to. It's not an S tier.
The more we talk about it, why don't we move Icewind Dale to S tier? Because we have nothing there right now. So let's.
No, wait. That shouldn't be enough reason to put something in S tier. Okay. Let me make a pitch to you. If you ran Ghosts of Saltmarsh from beginning to end, you would have a great, amazing campaign.
Yes.
Would it be unforgettable, right? Probably not.
Probably not. It would be really good.
I would say Icewind Dale would be pretty unforgettable, right? You saved the whole 10 towns, you fought a goddess, you discovered a Netherese Citadel, and you made your own decisions.
Tarask, you make your own decisions. Yeah, you put, yeah. Ooh, I do think, that's the thing. I do think it is unforgettable. I think that
it's glitching. It's glitching. It's glitching on the line. Okay.
Listen, if you want to put it in S, I think that's good. But let's wait.
Let's wait. Yeah.
But
we don't have the S tier noise yet. So.
The more I think about it, the more I'm being compelled.
Rob, there's been too much positivity, so I'm going to interject from May 1st, 2019 through November 19th, 2019. Wizards of the Coast released 3 short adventures. Stranger Things, Hunt for the Thessal Hydra. The Lost Dungeon of Wickedness, included in the Rick and Morty box set, and the Acquisitions Incorporated adventure. So all 3 of these are tie-ins with other media properties, or also by non-Wizards, or there are Wizards collaborations with other companies and studios. I have looked through these. Some of them are some of them are absolutely insulting. Is there one of these you want to start with first?
I haven't read any of these, Matt. I hate these. I hate these. Right. I think these are insulting on the face of them. I have no interest in reading them. They felt like cheap, lazy cash grab tie-ins. I don't like Acquisitions Incorporated as a concept. I can't listen to those guys talk. I'm sorry.
It's fine.
Penny
Arcade guys catching strays on this tier list. They're over
strays.
there.
We've discussed why they deserve my scorn. Anyway, sorry. When we were discussing this, I deliberately did not read these. If you want to talk about them and put them on the tier list, I won't be upset. I was like, I object to the concept of these adventures. Okay.
I'll explain. So 2 of them are comedy adventures, Acquisitions Incorporated, and
I'm not against comedy. I'm not against fun.
But let me explain
but
why
I don't like
they're bad.
This type of comedy, and I don't trust anyone involved at Wizards to do it well, which is why I wouldn't spend a single fucking penny on any of these. Sorry.
Okay, so why they're bad at comedy is the comedy is not happening at the table. All of them are just like, here's a humorous situation, not for your players to participate in, but for them to observe. You know, it's like you're opening a door and there's a closet full of pickle ricks, right? It's like, hey, do you remember the pickle ricks, right? I would say the Acquisitions Incorporated one is slightly better, but again, it's that same type of comedy. There's a little more material that one, so that one might be higher, but it's still in the insulting tier. The Hunt for the Thessal Hydra is kind of a starter adventure. Again, I really don't appreciate the tie-ins. We don't need to do this with Dungeons & Dragons. But again, it's not as cringy as Acquisitions Incorporated. And yeah, the not only is the Rick and Morty one, hey, look, it's a character vomiting. Hey, character says, show me what you got. Do you remember that line from the show?
I do remember, show me what you got.
Not only that.
Here's the thing, I like Rick and Morty. I think Rick and Morty is funny. That's what's doubly insulting about this.
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The triple insult of the Rick and Morty one is the actual rules and descriptive text are written in a faux Rick and Morty style, which just, you know, reading Rick and Morty script, that is, whether you agree Ricky Morty is funny, reading Ricky Morty is not Morty. Ricky Morty. Ricky Morty. All right, okay, so all those are out of the way now, Rob. They're all insulting trash. They should be skipped.
Thank you for falling on that sword for us, Matt. I wasn't going to.
I'm a completionist.
We
wanted to do all the 5e adventures. Like, here are all the 5e adventures.
All right, next up. Back to the regular ones. Waterdeep.
Back to the Forgotten Realms.
Dungeon of the Mad Mage. I have run several parts of this.
Yeah.
Multiple times.
This is our mega dungeon.
Is this the only, is that right? This
Yes.
is the only mega dungeon that 5th edition has to offer. And you know what? It's a good mega dungeon. I like Dungeon of the Mad Mage. I don't love Dungeon of the Mad Mage. I spent a lot of time here. It is, now, to be clear, when I say mega dungeon, I am talking 23 levels, and they are not small levels. This is a mega dungeon. I don't really love the overarching plot. In fact, I don't hate it. I find it aggressively uninteresting. The little mini plots on each level, some of them are quite good, some of them are quite interesting. There's lots of cool NPCs. There's some neat tie-ins to Waterdeep. You know, not as many as I would like.
You have a base of operations, right? Yawning Portal and Waterdeep.
I think
that's
what's cool
good
about this one that I like a lot is you literally go down the well in the Yawning Portal, and then there you are. And you can go in, you can fight, you can go back up. What's-his-face gives you a drink, and you go back down. I think that it really plays perfectly into the dungeon crawl fantasy. You go.
Is it
you fight.
the best mega dungeon? Is it as good as Abomination Vaults?
No.
Is it as good as Stone Hell?
Yeah. The thing is, and this is interesting, other third parties have really mastered the mega dungeon format, and they've done a better job. This is worth looking at to steal and borrow from. It works well, which is what I did as part of or a continuation from a Waterdeep campaign. But by itself, this is lunch pail. This is a very workable but not exceptional dungeon, in my opinion.
I have not run this one like you. I have read this. We have a short episode talking about parts of this. It is absolutely the definition of a good B+ adventure. Would you put this at the top of?
This is the top of lunch pail to me. Yeah.
Okay, better than Keys.
That's your call.
I would say.
I'm not attached to it. It's good. It's not great.
Yeah.
All right. Finally, we are to Waterdeep Dragon Heist.
And just to remind our listeners, we've now gone back in time 5 years. It's 2018. That's
Matt,
how long
that's
this one
6
came
years
out.
ago, bud.
6 years. Damn it.
It's 2024, my friend.
No.
Also, it's worth mentioning, this is almost to when we launched this motherfucking podcast.
Okay.
That's how long ago.
Oh, good for us. Oh,
Good
yeah.
for us.
Yeah.
So, as you all know, we talk about this all the time. We did some episodes on this. I have run this like 2.5 times. I love Waterdeep Dragon Heist. It is one of my favorite adventures of all time. This is my number 1 for 5th edition. There's a lot to like about it. One of the things I like about it is that it's short. It is only
so short.
5 level
1 through
adventure,
5.
but it's
an urban adventure.
It's tight.
We love that.
It's organized. One thing that I really like, which is maybe a me thing, but it kind of does matter. Everyone is different. You have a different villain every time you run this campaign. If you run it multiple times, there's a whole cast of really good villains, from Jarlaxle Bainra to the Castlanters. There's a bunch of great locations. It really it moves at a rapid clip. It really
moves.
It has some mystery sections, which Matt and I have talked about at length.
Right.
You have to give more to your players, but
it does need, again, like all these adventures, a little bit more connective tissue. But I think one of the strengths is because you're choosing your villains, you as the DM, it kind of helps you get going on fleshing out the connections. I wish it did more and had more linking parts. I also wish Heist wasn't in the name.
It is the main problem with this is it's deceptive in that you are not actually doing a heist. A heist is happening and you sort of have to stop it. But this is a tremendous campaign.
Okay.
It's a standalone. Great as a start. To me, this is an S tier adventure. This is my first S tier. If you want to fight me, that's okay. But I really do think that this is a really, really good. Yes, it has flaws, but I think that of the ones we talked about, this is the easiest to work with. It gives you the most, and you have to do the least work for the most benefit. This is an S tier adventure for me.
So I agree with you, and one of the reasons is because the setting you're given. So first off, it's set in Waterdeep. One of the advantages of all the places that don't exist in the world, maybe the most has been written by both fans and officially licensed things about Waterdeep, but there's a whole section here that's probably all you need, and it does a really good job. So I would say that alone is a great concept. The adventure gets the players really invested in the city, and the motivations, desires, and goals of their antagonists, both as organizations and as a actual villain, are so fleshed out, and there's so much information. There's a little misstep in that, you're given all their layers, and there's no reason to go there as written. You should absolutely take your players to the layers.
This is the main thing that I would change. Is
listen,
an
S tier
for a follow up, but they're not in the adventure. You don't actually have to go to any of these layers, but you should. Yeah.
Listen. S tier doesn't mean perfect. No published adventure is perfect. I would agree with you. This one is pretty unforgettable. It's a great campaign. So much is packed in those 5 layers. Sometimes I forget that this one is shorter and less levels to ones that are 300 pages. It blows some of those out of the water.
This is so rare. It has very little of that cruft that I complained about. It's tight. So much happens. There's so much information. This is the only. Is this right? The only urban campaign that we get.
Yeah.
And which is a shame because I love urban campaigns. And it's like Matt said, it's not perfect, but it is rich and fun to run and dynamic and interesting. And so much to work with, and it doesn't feel like a chore to run. I was excited to run this. I was motivated. I did not feel like any of the work that I had to do to prepare was too much work. It is your players have a ton of agency. Speaking of what you in both in terms of who they ally with, the factions that they work with, the places they go, how they solve the problem at the end.
Yeah.
This is
There's so much agency. There's so much the stars of the show.
This is one of the best for agency. Like, they really have control of like how they solve the problems. And yeah, this is, and you know, going back to my list of criteria, this is unique in like the setting is not unique. Waterdeep, like Matt said, is which works because the format and
every square and back alley has had a one of the world's greatest adventurers born there, lived there. Like, it's like London. It's got the little blue circles on the on the wall, being like
the format and the
Drizzt
style
took a shit here.
Of this is totally unique to 5th edition adventures. It's really, really fun. Strong recommendation and one of my favorites, S tier adventure.
All right, Rob. I think it's almost time to take another break, but I have two things for you, which is one, we should reassess and move any that you have, and two, I have the first move on this one, is I like Icewind Dale, Rime of the Frostmaiden, better than Waterdeep Dragon Heist. Now, I know some people might disagree with me, and I'm not saying I'm actually right, but I'm saying, maybe there should. I'm not saying it should move above that, but
you planted a seed in my brain, which is that would it be unforgettable? And you know what? This is what I liked about Icewind Dale is that like it felt like if you ran that campaign, it would be unforgettable. So, like, that's what we named our S tier, and the more I think about it, the more I think that even though it's deeply flawed, in a way... So here's the thing. Waterdeep Dragon Heist has fewer flaws. It is a very...
Correct.
Rare
I agree.
for D&D is a very well-structured campaign with not a lot of, like, major logic errors. So that's why I put it in S tier. But I think that I want to respect Icewind Dale's flawed ambition more. I think let's move that to S tier. I think you're right. I think let's move it to S tier.
I think it might be unforgettable. More flaws, right? But you know,
and
also,
if you want to move to the top, that's okay.
Payoff.
But I'm washing my hands of the position. But it definitely, the more I think about it, the more I think unforgettable.
I think
yes.
I think you're probably correct. I know I have an idiosyncratic opinion here. I'm like letting me. I'm being swayed by my own preferences for like big sandboxes and exploration. I should also say, are there any that we feel like now that we've gone through a big chunk that might be misplaced? It's okay if you don't have any, but now we have a lot to compare. Is what I'm saying.
You know, the B and C tier. Some of these, I'm like. You know, that one's a lot fuzzier, so I'm not sure on, but like I feel pretty good that everything belongs in one of those tiers, so I'm not super pressed about moving them between B and C. But you know, I could be convinced that one of them needs to move up and one of them needs to move down.
Rob, this is probably me just being like ships, space, but I'm looking at I know it's at the bottom of B tier, but Light of Xaryxis, the Spelljammer one. Like, there's no way it's as good as Dungeon of the Mad Mage or Call of the Neverdeep. I think we should probably knock it down to you know what? It's a fixer-upper. It has cool concepts, but you got to fix it. It's
in my
not
opinion, it's
Lunchpail.
The best fixer-upper, but I think you're right. I think that's because, again, now that we've talked about it more, that one needs a lot of work. Just because there are parts I liked about it doesn't mean that it doesn't need a lot of work, because it really does.
Our episode about this is just like, and here's a cool idea. Here's what you need to do to fix it. This is why this makes no sense and will frustrate your players. Again, it's a fixer-upper. All right, any other adjustments before we sign off for a few and finish our tier list? Come back and finish our tier list.
That feels good. That feels like a correct. Yeah.
Folks, thanks for sticking with us. We only have 8 more.
We're gonna try to move through these quickly. All right, here we go. All right, back.
You better roll them dice. You never know if it could change your life. Take a chance, you're neither wrong or right. You never know if you don't roll them dice. You You better roll them dice. You never know if it can change your life. Take a chance, you need the wrong or right. You never know if you don't roll.
Rob, hey, we're still here. We're still talking about
8 more to go. With
adventures.
With 8 adventures left, I noticed that our largest category remains the insult tier. Really, a lot of that is padding from the 3 gross, egregious tie-ins. But yeah,
right.
Well, let's see if
let me update our listeners here. So we're tier ranking all 5 adventures from the last 10 years. And Rob, I'm really thinking maybe the greatest adventure of all was the reviews we did along the way.
I do think.
We've been going for a long time when Rob's laughing that hard at my just softball pitch. So what do we have? We have in the S tier, Unforgettable, Waterdeep, Dragon Heist, Icewind Dale. A tier, Paragons, Ghosts of Saltmarsh, Journeys Through the Radiant Citadel, Candlekeep Mysteries, Descent to Avernus. B tier, these are Lunch Barrel Adventures. This is Keys from the Golden Vault, Dungeon of the Mad Mage, Call of the Netherdeep. C tier, Fixer Upper, Spelljammers, Light of Xaryxis, Quest from the Infinite Staircase, Wild Beyond the Witchlight, Dragons of Icespire Peak, Shadow of the Dragon Queen, Dragon of Stormwreck Island, and the F tier, the insults to us, Strixhaven, Curriculum of Chaos, Vecna, Eve of Ruin, the Shattered Obelisk, Planescape, Turn of Fortune Wheels, and then all the dumb tie-ins to Stranger Things, Acquisitions Incorporated, and Ricky Morty.
Rick and Morty. All right.
Actually, Rob, you make a great point to start off this final section. Maybe you're right. Maybe there should be a tier between F tier and C tier. Like, I think maybe we should add a tier of just shameless evil cash grab.
Okay, but
I don't know
that
what
one,
letter
that one goes
is
even lower. That's yeah.
All right, I'm going to add a row below, and I'm going to. It's a sickly green color, and what I'm going to call this Z tier.
Sure, yeah.
What's below F? No one knows what letter comes after this.
Well, G doesn't sound as bad. Call it Z or X tier, and just evil cash grab.
X sounds cool.
Z is good. Z tier.
I've heard some of the most powerful people in the world think X is cool. Evil.
It all happens on X, Matt. So you're right. Probably not that.
What, the everything app? Evil, shameless, cash grab with little to no value. Okay.
It's gonna look weird on the thing. But go ahead and move those down because those are just waste of time.
I also feel like the Shattered Obelisk is just even.
Put that
I'm
down
just
there.
remembering even more of how slapdash and how little it made sense. Okay, there we go. Things are
No, this actually feels better.
It's a little bit
That actually makes sense.
stressing me out. Yeah. Okay. All right, Rob, I have no idea which one's next. Which
Tomb
one
of
is it?
Annihilation, Matt, it's you. What do you have to tell me about
All right,
Tomb of
so
Annihilation?
I reread these old ones, but I paid special focus to some of them, and one of them was Tomb of Annihilation. So this is billed as the wilderness exploration adventure, the Hex Crawl. It is set in Forgotten Realms and Chult. And yes, it is kind of 3 parts, right? There's a little bit of an urban adventure in an exciting port city. There's a giant hex crawl, and then there is 2 medium dungeons, a ruined city, and then a mega dungeon at the end. Rob, this one's really interesting. It's a real land of contrast. One could say, in summary, Chult is a land of contrast. On the one hand, there's a lot of fairly well fleshed out NPCs in the port. On the other hand, parts of this reek of some really lazy Orientalist tropes about deepest jungles of below the equator on the other side of the world. So there's a little bit of that. On the one hand, this is a hex crawl, which we both like. On the other hand, you're given a ticking time clock that is just days in time. Oh, and by the way, Rob, the hexes are like 10 miles across, and it takes a day to cross a hex, and some of the hexes are like 50 hexes away. So, Rob, let me put it this way, Rob. If I told you
listeners, I'm making a face. I'm making a very
Rob is making a bad face.
Unhappy
For
face.
watchers of this video, you can see that face, and boy, does it suck. Rob, that's one of my least favorite faces of yours.
It's a bad face.
Rob, if I told you that a very fast ticking time clock and a hex crawl are two great tastes that taste great together, what would you response
I would say that's no peanut butter and chocolate, Matt. That's bullshit. I don't think
it's
those go
not
well.
a lime and coconut. It's not
those
a
don't go well
chocolate.
together at all.
This is also this might be our earliest gulp shitification in that it takes the Lich Xaryxis from
Xaryxis. I hate that guy.
Xaryxis from Tomb of Horrors. And if you remember Greyhawk, and it puts him in the Forgotten Realms for like no reason. It could be any Lich. It could be any guy. There's like no need to do this. However, with all of that being said, caveats about the ticking time clock, and again, the hex crawl is the size of fucking Texas. And Texas is bigger. I calculated. Don't worry, Texans like myself. You're not insulted. The hex crawl, Texas is still bigger than
Texans,
France,
Matt, and it's
bigger
important that we be bigger than the Tomb of Annihilation.
Bigger than the hex crawl and Tomb of the. Despite the caveats of Orientalism, kind of a weak starting thing, the kind of mismatch in tones, there are some really, really good encounters, and if you took the hex crawl encounters and put them into a hex crawl that made sense and took away the ticking time clock that is not the enemy of the hex crawl. I guess we should explain, why are ticking time clocks and hex crawls enemies?
Well, because, right, it seems obvious to us, but like the whole point of a hex crawl is you are taking your time, you're exploring, you are seeing where the hexes take you. If you are in a hurry, you cannot enjoy the process of hex crawling. It's an obvious problem. Why give your players a big open empty map to explore and then say, sorry, you can't explore it because you've got to be somewhere?
Exactly. It's like, do not have any fun. Hex crawl's all about tempting your players with, you see a mountain that looks like a bird, or something, and like, I want to go there.
Go to that weird place, yeah.
Yeah. You see a crashed spaceship in the distance. You want to check it out. Some of the hexes are very good. Some of them are very great. Many of the encounters in the port, including dinosaur races, are very fun. There are pirates. The very end of the adventure is a 6-level mega dungeon, like the Tomb of Horrors, inspired by the Tomb of Horrors. It's got a lot of traps. That's probably not everyone's favorite type of mega dungeon, the ones with lots of traps. However, if you can fix some of these major flaws, this can be a pretty good adventure, because a lot of people want to play a hex crawl. Now, we stack this up against Kingmaker, Rob. We stack this up against
that's the
Hot
thing, right?
Springs Island.
Right.
On its best day, Tomb of Annihilation is never going to be a Hot Springs Island. I'm sorry, Rob. It's not.
I mean, that's the thing,
It's not
right?
Hall of Fame.
If it's being compared to other better hex crawls, the same as how Dungeon of the Mad Mage is being compared to other better mega dungeons, then, it's just, why would you do this instead of something that exists that's better?
Yeah. I would say there's so much to steal from the hex crawl, which is the majority of the book. That keeps it from being in the bottom half of our stuff. The baffling decisions and plot structure of mixing trap dungeon, ticking time clock, and a hex that is just the hex crawl that is absolutely, again, we should point out, the wrong size for a hex crawl. So that 2% of the hexes are empty, or you're going to have to fill with random encounters, which the random encounter generator is not good. This is going to put it, the stuff that's here is good enough to save it from bottom tier. So Tomb of Annihilation set in, not Africa, written, I think, exclusively by white guys. I think is probably somewhere in the C or B tier, top of the C tier, bottom of the B tier. Because again, the hexes, when they're good, they're very good. They're very cool. There's cool pirates. There's cool bird
sounds
people.
Sounds like a fixer-upper to me. But
there's no way this is worse than Spelljammer. Yeah, this is. I'm going to say, actually, this one is probably bottom of the B tier.
I'll take it.
It's such a leap above Spelljammer where, like, everything is wrong. This one's like, hey, you take the time clock. You say, actually, the evil thing is happening nebulous time.
I mean, much like a mega dungeon, there's stuff that you can borrow. Like, you don't have to engage with all the shit that doesn't work. You can just, like, pick up a hex and drop it somewhere. So that makes sense for it being a lunch meal. If the hexes are good, that's workable.
All right, well, that's Tomb of Annihilation, Rob. What's next up on our list?
One of mine, Tales from the Yawning Portal, our very first anthology. Our very first.
And for purposes of this review, the last anthology.
The last anthology.
To talk about.
I have a physical copy of this. This is a book from 2017. It contains 7 adventures. The framing device is, you're in the Yawning Portal. Which, you know what? I kind of like it. It's no muss, no fuss. It's one page. Here's some guys, and then you're off to the races. This contains one of my favorite adventures of all time.
Is it the Sunless Citadel?
It is the Sunless Citadel, which I have run 3 times, and I love unabashedly. I think it's so, so, so good.
Ding, ding, ding. Hey, if you have noticed that we've put 2 starting adventures in the bottom half of our tier list, guess what? Sunless Citadel is a solid A tier starting adventure. Yeah. Maybe even S tier if we were talking about it by itself.
It's A tier. I don't think it has like quite enough going on to be S tier, but I really like it. It's fun to run and interesting as a GM, which is important to me. The follow-up, The Forge of Fury, which is pretty good, is also in this book. It's also
that's a solid B to me.
It's a solid B. Those are both 2000. It's also got the Hidden Shrine of Tamoa Khan, which is a Orientalist, Mayan-inspired adventure from the 80s. It's got White Plume Mountain, which is a famous adventure from the S series. It's fine. It's fine. It's not one of my favorites, but it's not bad.
Yeah. I think it's pretty good.
It's got Dead and Thay, which is sort of like a precursor to 5e or an early 5e adventure, which is a mega dungeon, which is not really my thing, but it's good. I like it. I don't hate it. And then Against the Giants and Tomb of Horrors, which are both Gygax modules. I'm sorry to be a hater. I am a hater. I don't really like these. I've never liked Tomb of Horrors. I think that it's dog shit. I think that it's overrated. I
think Tomb of Horrors, it's a trap dungeon that is meant to be played as a one-shot. If you keep that in mind, it's not bad. I think Against the Giants is actually quite good. It's funny that we have an anthology here, in my opinion, that has one of Gygax's worst adventures, The Lost Caverns of Tzonchkanth, and Against the Giants, one of his better ones.
It's not my favorite. It is a good adventure. I do think that Against the Giants is good. So sorry, the whole point is these aren't always to my taste, but the Tales from the Yawning Portal has 7 pretty good adventures. One of them is really good, and a couple of them are, depending on your taste, also really good. This is an average that is pretty high for an anthology. Yeah. I would put this in a B tier.
I would say it's definitely better than Quests from the Infinite Staircase, another one that is just republished adventures with a terrible framing device. Hey, take note. Maybe don't have adventures that are over 40 years old only. Yes. Include some new ones. There have been good ones. Check out Sunless Citadel. It's great.
In my opinion, the highest a republished anthology can go is B tier, and this is the perfect.
That's correct.
This is the perfect republished, in my opinion. This is what I want to see. Publish them, update the art, update the writing. Don't fuck around with framing devices. I really like this book. I think this is, if you like anthologies, if you want to revisit some old ones with some newer ones that are good, if you just we're just to pick one off the shelf, and you're not interested in nautical themes, then Tales from the Yawning Portal is the one that I would recommend. Yeah. So this is a good one. It's not great, but it's good. It's very workable.
I absolutely agree. There are 2 here I really like, and most of the other ones are not offensive or not terrible. There's a lot of inspiration. Sure, there's no framing advice. I don't care at this point.
I'd rather
We've
have
read so many
none
ones that are
than a bad one, right? Like either do a
Yeah.
good one or do nothing, and this nothing is fine.
All right. Thank you, Tales from the Yawning Portal, for supporting our B tier. We really appreciate you.
All right, next up we have
All right.
Storm King's Thunder.
So Storm King's Thunder is like, after Tales from the Yawning Portal, Rob, I feel like we're going into the like early days of like 5e, where every adventure like was like always set in the, I think everything from here on back,
Yep.
with one exception, is going to
Big,
be set in the
chunky,
Forgotten Realms.
Forgotten
Most
Realms,
of them are going to be big.
year-long, level 1 to
Years long.
level 1 to 11 or 15. Yeah, every single one that's left is just a big, chunky super campaign.
So, and whereas Tomb of Annihilation, like, hey, this was a big hex crawl. Storm King's, and it was exploration of the unknown. Storm King's Thunder is big epic fantasy, right? A big problem, a magic, the gods. It's kind of a point crawl in that you're not exploring hex by hex. You're traveling from, one place in the Sword Coast to another place in the Sword Coast to a 4th place in the Sword Coast to 5 different giant lairs. There's a lot of like traveling, but the travel is not the point, right? The point is you're going to new places. So there is a lot of good stuff here, right? The like big like set pieces in this are amazing. Like, you're starting off, you arrive at a town that's just been bombed by a flying castle with giant boulders, and there's all these people to interact with, and then you can go to other towns and investigate what's going on with the giants. There's a big thing with the giants. Spoilers, the giant god has dissolved giant feudalism. He's emancipated the serfs. So there's no longer a giant hierarchy, and this is causing the giants to just fuck all kinds of shit up. The players will eventually travel to like 5 different giant themed dungeons, once for each type. The problems with this one is all of the stuff that gets players from one place to another, which is either boring, like, hey, go meet my brother in this town, or go take this to my cousin who lives here. It's like, why are you asking our heroes of the adventure to do the thing that happens in an MMO to get you to go to a new location? So the connective tissue is very, very bad. The set pieces and the concept are very, very good. The conspiracy to like figure out what is going on with the giants and why an evil dragon is involved and stuff is almost undiscoverable by the players. Like, you really have to have an NPC come and tell them about it. And it's got that Forgotten Realms, hey, an NPC, his name's like Haberdasher or something like that, shows up, he's cooler than them, tells them about things. There are parts of this one that I really, really like. The stuff that links it all together is very, very bad, but it is not terrible. In fact, it may even be better, I think, than like some of these other ones. It's probably not better than Tomb of Annihilation. The highest I could go is B tier. I'm not insulted by it. It needs a lot of fixing.
Your call, Matt. Fixer upper or lunch pail?
I would say this one is at the very, very bottom of lunch pail.
Based on what you're saying, that sounds right. That sounds right.
I might be convinced later it needs to be moved down to fixer upper, but I think the work to fix it up is probably not that hard once you take all your dungeons and all your towns the players can visit and all of your villains, and you just draw some more connections between them.
Okay, I like it.
If your players want big epic fantasy with gods and these mythical giants, this is the one you want to look into.
Okay. All right, we're getting deep into the collection. we are now
deep
back
into
to
the past.
March of 2016 and Curse of Strahd, which is a re-release of a much older 80s Weiss and Hickman module.
A re-release and basically a complete like reworking of like all the stuff that's not in Castle Ravenloft, right?
Yes.
If that's
so
correct.
Not to
and we have a episode of this. If you need to find it, I think it's called "That Feeling When No Goth Girlfriend."
Yeah,
so if you can't find
we named it poorly, so you can't find it. But we did do an episode on this. We'll link all of this in the show notes, by the way. This is one of my favorites.
So let's try this, Rob. For 3, 2, 1. Say in one word what you think about Curse of Strahd. 3, 2, 1.
Vampires.
One of the best. Best. Okay.
You said one word.
I know. I
best.
cheated, just like Baron.
Just
Baron
like
Strahd.
Baron Strahd von Zarovich. Yeah. So if this is probably not going to be a surprise to you, but like this is my number 1 for 5th edition. This is peak for me, and this is complicated because like I don't love Ravenloft as a setting. Gothic horror is not my favorite type of campaign to run.
Gothic horror is my least favorite type of genre fiction, and this is still my favorite adventure of the ones we've talked about so far.
So this is exactly what I'm in the same boat, and it is a testament to how good this adventure is. And going back to my list of criteria, it is utterly unique. It is.
Yeah, we should check our criteria list. We haven't done that in a while.
It is. So actually, I should.
The concept is great.
Concept is great. It is unlike any other campaign that you will ever run. It's a little bit hard to explain like what's so unique about it, but like it doesn't play like other adventures. It is. So one ding against it, which isn't going to hurt it in the overall ranking, is that it's not actually that easy to borrow from because it is so perfectly self-contained, but it is well written. It is very well organized. It has tons of interesting characters and NPCs. The structure and layout is great. There are not too many dungeons. There are a few dungeons. Yeah. The dungeons are very memorable, and they are interesting and fun to me. And
there is so much player agency.
Yes, and this is the thing.
Your
players have...
After the very beginning, you're given a very open-ended dungeon that they can explore. But after that, the players can go and do anything they want, but they have a strong set of like motivations and goals for what they need to do.
And listen to our episodes. I don't want to go too long about this, but like your players can do anything they want. They can immediately ride to the gates of of the castle and be like, Strahd, come the fuck out, let's fight. Fine. And they'll die, but they can do that. Nothing is stopping them. But they have
the adventure will still continue though. It's written in such a great way. It's like Strahd will raise them from the dead because he wants them to be a more challenge.
And Strahd is such a great villain. He's so well written. There's all these like magical artifacts that your players can find and will help them defeat Strahd, but they don't need to find. This is both a sandbox, but also it's like a point crawl, and it's I could not go on enough. Again, I would love this.
One
so
of the
much
things
if it
is
were
like
in any other setting with any other like theme. I don't want to hate on Gothic horror because a lot of people like it. I just like if somebody took this same level of attention and like to detail about writing adventures and put it in Spelljammer or something like that, then I would just be like over the fucking moon. Anyway, this is
right. Imagine what we would be saying if we actually liked Gothic horror.
Right.
The thing is, there are other themes in this, and one of the other things is, while we should say, right, because it is open-ended and promotes player agency and choice, prepping the first part after the first adventure takes some work, but it is completely worth it. And after that, like, there's no, like, all these other ones that I think are even in the A and B tiers, there's so many points where you go, like, what the fuck is going on here? How do I get my players from the next point? How do I motivate them? How do I show them and let them experience the backstory or what the villains are without just having someone tell them? How do I let them interact with all of these amazing NPCs? You will never say that during Curse of Strahd, right? Your players will always be experiencing this stuff. It is always up to them. They are the stars of the show.
Once you have prepped for Strahd, and it is a lot of prep because you really have to like know the whole module kind of like backwards and forwards, but once you have prepped, That's it. You can run it. Like, it all flows very naturally. It has this gimmick, which I love. It's not a gimmick. That's the wrong way to say it. But, like, every time you play it, it's different because you have a Taroka reading at the beginning. So certain objects, certain people are in different places. I think this just, like, little bit of randomization, I love this. I think it means that, like, obviously, I don't usually run modules more than once. But this small change makes it kind of interesting and compelling to me to try to do it more than once. And it means there's just like enough randomization and variety to really, I think, compel you as a GM. Love Curse of Strahd. S tier. I love
Curse of Strahd. I have to agree with you. It's S tier. Like, there are so many like interesting side quests, and the motivations are always like right there for the players to do them. And like, if players want to skip parts of the module, it's totally fine, right? And you, even though like this is horror where you have a villain and literally his motivation is he's bored.
He's bored.
Trust us, it works great.
He wants a wife. He wants a challenge, but like it actually, like, it works really well. He's a really you find out his backstory, and he's a really compelling, despite being, you know, Vlad the Impaler in Ravenloft, is a very compelling
ripoff,
very compelling villain with an interesting backstory and interesting motivations.
And despite him being such a like big personality, your players still feel like the stars of the adventure.
It's because
right?
the better they do, the more he's interested in them, the more he raises them up. Like, it's cool. It's a really great dynamic.
All right, we've gushed about Curse of Strahd for long enough. It's in the S tier. Where would you put it?
I mean, this is the top for me. I mean, I don't want to spend a lot of time like quibbling because the other two in this tier have things that like might put them at the top. But like, if I'm just trying to go for like the easiest decision, Curse of Strahd, despite all the things that I don't like love about it, is in terms of adventure design, the best 5th edition adventure, hands down.
I would say not only is it easier to run than those other two, it like has none of their flaws and like hang-ups. So again, you should know that this is good because Rob and I do not like gothic horror. We don't like sad vampires. I mean, we don't hate them, but like they're not our favorite thing. Like, we love heists and urban adventures, and we love, you know, like scrappy wilderness towns, and we love sailing and Spelljammer and going to hell and metal and things. Right. But despite all of that, we cannot put any of those above Curse of Strahd.
And that is a great point. That should tell you how much we like it. All right, the last
next up, we're down to 4.
Sorry, the next 3 are me, so I'm going to try to move through these pretty quickly.
Well, I've also read through, not in detail them. But, go ahead. Out of the Abyss.
Out of the Abyss.
Tell us about Out of the Abyss.
Is an adventure where your players are in the Underdark and they have to get out of the Underdark.
So the starting, you're prisoners of the Drow. You have to escape the Underdark. Once you get it back, you're sent back to the
Underdark.
I was just out, and then they dragged me back in.
Yeah, so here's the thing. The first part of this adventure, in my opinion, is so good. It is
great opening.
So good. This is a great hook. You're all prisoners of the Drow. Your players can decide how and why. There's a bunch of other great NPCs that are there with you.
There's a lot of them. I was reading through these. I was like, oh boy, there's a lot, but you know, they're good.
Complain about them. But the thing is, if you don't want to use them, they can get killed in the prison break. Like, you know, if it's too many NPCs, kill some off. There's several great sections where you go through the Underdark, you find some Dwergar, you find some Sfnerfblin, some Deep Gnomes. I'm never going to say that word again. You know. And then you find out that the demon lords are doing crazy shit down there. Like the Kuotoa summoned Demogorgon where you're there. Zugmoti is doing fungus shit. Jubilex.
We love all these names.
My favorite demon lords. Jubilex has the Slime King, which has taken over a big part of this deep gnome stronghold, and then you escape, and then the Dwarf King is like, go back. Yeah, you got to go back in there. So,
and you have to do this.
You have to do it.
the fun idea of an escape from the Underdark is, I think, really a great concept, and there's some great supporting material there. My critique of this first half was like, there's just like, your players are basically doing the first part of Mad Max like forever for like 6 levels.
Yes.
And that's great.
Yes.
Except there's very little choices that they can make. They're just kind of like, all right, now you go to the Dark Lake or whatever, and you got to do this thing. But that being said, I still love the first half of this adventure.
I love this. So there's 2 things wrong with this adventure as a whole. One is, your players it is like they are just in the Underdark, and they just gotta go. It's not like the worst form of railroad, because like they are escaping. Like it makes sense that they like have to like.
They do have to go up eventually,
they have to go up.
right?
But like it is a railroad, and you're in the Underdark. I hope you like being in the Underdark, because you're gonna be there for a long time. And the second part with the adventure as a whole is that the second half sucks. I mean, it doesn't suck. It's not like the worst.
It does. No, Rob, it does suck.
It
I mean, it's got cool villains, and you did meet all those villains before, demons and demon cultists.
Yeah.
But it's like, it's set pieces that are okay, and you're railroaded from one of them to the other.
It mostly sucks because it's just got like so much less detail and attention, and is so much less interesting than the first half, which even if you don't like everything about it, I think the first half is really good. I think the main problem with the first half is that you're in the Underdark the whole time, and I'm not that interested in the Underdark. That being said,
if people are like
escaping from the Drow is cool.
Yeah.
They're hunting you the whole time. You're like running around. These demon lords are being summoned into like, there's exploding mushrooms. Like, it's a fun Mad Max, like chaos hellscape. Your players are just trying to stay alive. I love it. And I want to put
now,
this...
Rob, where would you put let me make this easier on you. Where would you put the first half of this?
So I would put the first half solidly in the A tier. I don't think it's quite S tier for a number of reasons. One, the railroadiness, the Underdark, which I don't care about. I would like to keep the whole adventure in the A tier, even though the second half sucks, because you can just ignore it, in my opinion.
Yeah.
I think that like,
but we do have to rate these holistically.
Yeah.
So if you did the second half by itself,
this would
be
this
as
would be
bad
B-tier.
as an F?
No, it's not that bad.
C?
No,
Okay.
it's still a B. The second half is bad. It's not that bad. I think that this puts us in like the middle of the B tier.
Where would you put this compared to, let's start with Dungeon of the Mad Mage?
Oh,
better or worse?
I'd put it at the bottom of B tier. If we're counting the like,
I think it's worse than Storm King's Thunder, just because it doesn't stick the landing.
I think you're probably right. And there's another adventure that's the inverse of this, which we'll talk about later, which is also going to end up probably in the C or B tier. So that's fair. I just like I really liked it. Is the thing. It's like I hate to put anything that I really liked in lower than the B tier. And everything else that's there is things that were okay, but I didn't really like love. But like there are parts of Out of the Abyss that just like tickled me that I thought were so good, such good NPCs, such good locations, so much to work with. It's just like the second half is like, why did you even bother with this? This sucks.
Right. I should mention we've gone far back enough in time that Wizards is no longer writing the modules that you think they're writing. Like, they're probably doing something. But yeah, this one's by Green Ronin. Despite you're not seeing a little green samurai guy on the front, it is by Green Ronin.
I should mention that if you liked the Underdark section of Baldur's Gate 3, they drew a lot from this book. And if that was fun for you, you should check this out. It's got the Society of Brilliance. It's got a bunch of fungus people. It's got all kinds of cool shit. There's a lot to like about this book. It's too long. And there's too much that doesn't... If it was chopped in half, this would be an A-tier book easily.
Yeah, I think the first half got me really excited. The second half of the fetch quest was really annoying. Especially like the players escape the Underdark. Your reward is to go back to the Underdark, right?
This is the major mistake. This is just like a massive misstep.
If you replace the final half, now we're just wish casting, but if you replace the final half with going to like fight a demon lord in hell or something, that would be pretty interesting. Cool. Anyway, we haven't done an episode on Out of the Abyss, but maybe we should one day.
Maybe we should. I would. All right,
Rob. Let's move on to Princes of the Apocalypses. So if you've heard of a certain chained one, a Tharizdun, the inverted pyramided, the elemental eye, all of these. Once again, we have a Greyhawk thing imported to Forgotten Realms. Just like Xaryxis, now we have Tharizdun and Elemental Evil. So this one takes an inspiration, right, from the Temple of Elemental Evil, but is essentially completely different, and it's by Sasquatch Games.
So yeah, so Princess of the Apocalypse, this is rare. I've read it. I also played in this campaign very briefly. I had an opportunity to have someone else DM.
God, Rob, I know almost everything about you. I did not know this.
Yeah, it was brief. It was, I think, right before the pandemic, and one of my friends did get the inspiration, and then he had a baby, and so we have not continued that campaign. But
yeah, it happens.
I played. I had the most obnoxious, cheesy character. I had a Githyanki wizard that wore heavy plate armor and fought with a great sword and had his familiar.
I've heard of this wizard.
Give me advantage on every attack. Yes, it was very cheesy. It was fun. I loved him. Dazrag the Exile. Anyway, Princess of the Apocalypse.
But how was the adventure?
It was, well, I didn't play very much. I liked the part I played in. There's Princess of the Apocalypse is interesting. It is kind of open-ended. It is sort of like a sandbox. There's sandboxy elements of it in that there are different orders that you can approach the problem, which is that there is a great elemental evil, and there are 4 elemental evil bad guys that you have to defeat to then defeat the great elemental evil. Now, this is boring and bad, but I actually did like most of Princess of the Apocalypse, and I'll tell you why. They put a lot of effort. Again, they're updating Temple of Elemental Evil, more or less. They're inspired by it.
Sure.
Whatever. Just bear with me, Matt. That's
just a quick guide for our listener. Village of Hamlet, good. Temple of Elemental Evil, bad.
Yes.
Know the difference, despite them sometimes being in the same adventure.
Yes. They updated all the cults of, like, there's elemental cults, earth, air, fire, water, right? They gave them, like, cool designs, like, cool abilities. There's a ton of dungeons in this of varying quality. They are all themed, right? Fire dungeons, water dungeons, earth dungeons, whatever. Matt,
if you're talking cool concept, Rob, that's pretty low tier.
Matt
that's
doesn't
like,
love these.
Listen, if you
saying
do
they're
this
great
for your first campaign, listeners, if you make a fire and a water and an air and a whatever the other 4th element is, no one knows. Many are looking into it. If you make that in your campaign, that's great. That's amazing. If you publish an adventure with this, I'm sorry, conceptually,
I'm not making an argument for why you should run this adventure, which I would never do. I think that this is a great adventure to steal from. I think there's lots of cool bits and bobs, and the cultists and some of the dungeons would be very good to borrow. I enjoyed reading parts of it. I would like to put this in, now that we've talked about it, I had put it in the B tier, but this is clearly a C tier adventure.
Here's my opinion. So I noticed, again, the Greyhawk lore in the Forgotten Realms, which is just seems like a missed opportunity to just set this in Greyhawk, where this adventure would work better. Getting to the themed dungeons and seeing the repetitiveness of this, it was really boring for me to read. I also was not super interested in the antagonists at all, which for Storm King's Thunder, going up against the giants is really cool. Going up against drow and demons, very cool. This one, not so much.
The biggest problem with this adventure is that I simply do not care about the bad guys, especially like the big bad. It is not compelling. I want to be clear. I would never run this as written. I think there are parts of it I liked. I got to put this in Fixer Upper, though, because by our criteria, there's not much to work with here.
All right. So we got a lot in Fixer Upper. Is this, let's say, better than Wild Beyond the Witchlight? Or worse than Dragonlance Shadow of the Dragon Queen?
I think it's better than Dragonlance, probably.
Oh, yeah. That's not a high bar to clear.
No.
I will also say it's better than Icespire Peak. Is it better than Wild Beyond the Witchlight?
I don't know. That's really hard to compare because like they're really not the same type of adventure.
Which is better, Rob, apple or orange? We said we could do it at the beginning.
I don't know. I think it's worse than Witchlight, just barely though.
I would agree, though I haven't read this one in as much detail as you, but I think Witchlight has a lot to offer from it, and this one, it's also Witchlight way better organized in terms of finding out what's actually going on. One of the things that I found was a little frustrating about some of the early ones is that Storm King's Thunder and Out of the Abyss are okay at this, but some of the really earliest ones, like figuring out what's going on, like just tell me somewhere in the first couple pages so I can organize all my thoughts and help me understand the context in which this dungeon room exists and all that came before it. Okay, Rob. Next up, we have... Okay, Rob, pedants out there know that we are combining for saving time, Hoard of the Dragon Queen, and Rise of Tiamat, because they're basically two halves of a similar adventure, and they've been released in one hardcover now. So, Tyranny of Dragons by Kobold Press, and a little help from Wizards.
So, very technically, this combined adventure should have come, much earlier because it was released in January of 2023, but the originals are way, 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 way back in the mists of time. So
yeah, it's funny with like this one. This was probably written before 5e was even finished.
I think so. So the funny thing about Tyranny of Dragons is it's like the inverse Out of the Abyss. So I think the beginning is absolute dog water. And the second half is actually is pretty good. If we were just talking about the second half, this would be B, maybe even A tier if I was feeling generous. As it stands, the beginning is so boring and so bad. I cannot imagine trudging through 8 levels of Hoard of the Dragon Queen to get to Rise of Tiamat, which is pretty good.
had trouble reading this one. I had trouble reading the first part of this one, Rob.
It's so dense, so boring, overwritten. There's a whole section of just like wandering the fucking wilderness. If I had a physical copy, I would have thrown it across the room. I was like, this is so boring.
Yeah.
The second half is a lot better.
Tell me some good things about the second half.
There's one good thing about the first half. At the end, there's a cloud giant fortress that they have to invade, which is the first cool thing that happens in 8 levels. The second half, they have a bunch of like councils of Waterdeep, which are basically like the Council of Rivendell, but whatever, it's fun, I don't mind. There's a lot of interesting NPCs. There's a lot of interesting non-combat scenarios, negotiations. There are some cool villains. It's a lot more like it starts to make sense, like what you're doing.
Mm-hmm.
Tiamat is a cool villain. Her cultists are cool villains. It's still pretty like, it's not like the most unique scenario, but it's so much more interesting than the first half, and I can see myself running it or running my players through it. But it's fine. Some parts of it I thought were pretty interesting and unique.
Okay, so Rob, is this? I think this sounds like it's really on the border, but probably C tier from your description.
This is a C tier. If we're being honest and we are counting the whole adventure like we did with Out of the Abyss, this is a C tier. The beginning is so bad. You would have to either like cut it or wildly adjust it because it's barely workable.
Would you say, here's an easy question, better than the last one you just talked about, Princes
I think it's
of the
worse than Out of
Apocalypse,
the
or
Abyss.
worse?
I think it's worse than Out of the Abyss.
Is it better than Princes of the Apocalypse, the elemental evil?
I think it's better than Princes of the Apocalypse. I think that generally it, because like Princes of the Apocalypse you can't really even run. It's just, or I would run Tyranny of Dragons. I don't know if you like put a gun to my head and said like which of these would you run, I would run Tyranny of Dragons first. So yeah.
Rob, talking about some of these like dense, complicated, like what is going on here, the connections don't make sense ones make me think maybe we should consider the like dumb railroady ones of recent years, like but we'll get to that in a second. Rob, we've made it to the final one. Lost Mine of Phandelver. We have an episode about this. It focuses mostly on things you can do to improve it. It's not mostly reviewing it. So let's review this starter set 1 through 5 adventure, the very first one to come out right now.
I think it's nice. I don't have a lot to say about it. I don't think there's anything. I don't want to say like it's not interesting because that's wrong. I just like there's nothing surprising or super compelling about it, but it is very like extremely functional. The things that I praised Waterdeep Dragon Heist about are the same things that I like about Phandelver, is that it moves quickly, it makes sense, it's compelling.
Yeah.
It
makes sense to your players. It makes sense to you reading it. When we're talking about like making sense, it's like, will this make sense in play? Can I understand what's going on when I'm reading this? And both of those are true. It's such a rare thing, apparently.
Yeah. Would I run this as my starting adventure? Not necessarily. I would run our best starting adventure instead if I had a choice.
Yes.
But it's
check
good.
it out at patreon.com. You can read the best starting adventure. I would say this one as a starting adventure. We've got Sunless Citadel. We got Dragons of various peaks and isles. Shattered Obelisk. This one blows all of those out of the water. Not only do your characters have a strong motivation, a reason for being together, the first encounter like teaches them a little bit about the game. The second encounter at the Goblin Dungeon teaches them a little more. While there's some parts that are repetitive and some potential TPKs, but if you shave some of those rough edges off, you have an amazing middle part that is like a really fun sandbox of variety of things. The players are the stars of the show. They can take some agency. This one is very good. For me, this is at least A tier. I don't know, Rob, you're right. There's like no cool concept here that's going to blow your DM mind, but
I would also put this in A tier. That's exactly where I would put it. I would disagree. I think that Sunless Citadel is better than this, but by our criteria, you have a point. I think that Sunless Citadel is an unforgettable campaign. However, your players don't have much agency. It doesn't have a particularly compelling hook. It doesn't really teach you how to play the game. So,
no.
I if we were just doing Sunless Citadel as a tier, then we would have some arguments to make. But this is solidly A tier, and
Lost Mind is solidly A tier, and I believe it's like it is so good at doing the basics right. Again, right, there are some flaws. Listen to our episode about it. I would say it's maybe the top of the A tier just for how useful it is.
Oh, absolutely. Again, the things that, I praised Dragon Heist for these things, and these are important to me. It makes sense to you. It makes sense to your players. It is easy to run. It is compelling. You will not be disappointed running Lost Mine of Phandelver as written, and with some easy changes like we talked about, you can make it even better.
Wow. Rob, here we are.
We did it. 3 hours
later.
later.
Look at the big board. There's 30 adventures, 3 hours on the big board. Every single 5e adventure that's not like something for charity to raise money for starving kids or something like that. We don't care about those. We've got the good ones here, and some of the many bad ones. Rob, let's take a moment to, I guess, reflect. Our 2 questions: did we learn anything, and are there any that you're like reconsidering here? So
no. Aside from
I learned we're very tired of reading adventures. We want to do something else.
Aside from the 2 that we moved, I feel actually the more the time has gone on, the better I feel about like the position of all our adventures. I don't know that we learned anything. I know that Wizards didn't learn anything. Like, as we've discussed, 3 of the worst adventures that have ever been produced came out in the last 2 years. So this is not a terrific sign for the future of Wizards as an adventure writing company. You know, I had kind of hoped in my mind, I hadn't like done the math, but I had hoped there'd be more that I liked. But in truth, there are not that many that I liked. not that like that I really liked. That I and
listen. It's hard to write an adventure, so I'm not surprised, right?
Yeah,
and it's not going to hit for everyone, you know.
But like we've read so many recently that I have liked. Paizo adventures or third-party adventures that I was really excited to read and gave me lots of ideas. And so, like, yeah, it's a bummer.
You know, I'm looking at our Insulted tab, and I think listeners or watchers of this video should know is that it's because these ones have so much potential, whereas something like I don't know, Out of the Abyss or Storm King's Thunder, nothing about that concept like super excites me. I know it excites other people, but to basically make an adventure where at the beginning of every chapter someone says, do this thing, and then there's nothing the players can do, that might be easy to run, but it will be less easy on you and your players in the long term because they will stop wanting to play role-playing games because they will have their agency stripped away from them as they are forced on a tight railroad of just an NPC telling them what to do and then doing the thing, watching the gulp shitto go by.
Yeah. Yeah, that is the
let's
thing
see.
The insulting ones is like, yeah, wasted potential is the toughest thing.
I mean, I have nothing to say about the shameless evil cash grab with little to no value.
I'm annoyed at even having to acknowledge that they exist.
I will say of the insulted tier, the Planescape adventure in my mind is absolute trash. There's nothing of redeeming value from it. The Vecna adventure, if you make Vecna and cast lovers, if you go to my link of how to restructure
20
it,
pages of rewriting, there is an adventure there.
Mm-hmm. The concept is good. For the Planescape one, the concept isn't even good. For Strixhaven, the idea of Strixhaven and being Magic students is good. Nothing in the execution hits for me. Moving on to the C tier, there are lots here to steal from. NPCs, scenarios, dungeons, locations.
Yeah. These all have something to work with.
Yeah. I mean, ironically for me, I'm more interested in fixing up the insulted tier than the fixer-upper tier.
You like a challenge, Matt. It's okay.
I just like the challenge. In the B tier, I don't think I'm gonna ever run any of these except for the anthology ones, and there's already one part of the Dungeon of the Mad Mage I've stolen. I will say my favorite concept of the B tier is Storm King's Thunder. If you want epic fantasy, the execution and the connective tissue is really fucked.
I really liked Out of the Abyss more than I expected to. The second half is so bad. And I probably won't be running like a 5th edition adventure ever. Certainly not anytime soon. But I of all the ones that you've read I have not already run, I did find the idea of an escape from the Underdark pretty fun and compelling, and I liked a lot of the NPCs. So that one was my favorite from the B tier, but it's there, it's correctly there because there's just too much wrong with it.
Rob, I'm glad you're not going to run another 5th edition adventure again because, you won't be able to.
That's
They're
right.
closing
it's
the
against
edition
the
down.
Law. Wizards will send the Pinkertons
go away.
to break my knees if I run a 5th edition adventure.
Yeah, I mean, that is the fun thing about adventures is they stick around forever, and once you are experienced enough at role-playing games, switching between stats and even game systems is sometimes it's not worth it, but it's it's just one more thing of work, and often it's not that bad. The A tier, I mean, some of these I really, really love. Running Shadow in the Sun or Shadow of the Sun, the one with the angel city from Journeys to the Radiant Citadel was so much fun for my players. I've lifted so much from Ghosts of Saltmarsh. Plus, running 2 adventures together it's really great. And running Lost Mines, also amazing, right? There's so much to tweak. These ones can be from I think the top end to the bottom end, like a real playground where it's fun to tweak them around. And then by the time you're getting to the bottom, it's becoming more work, but they're still infinitely tweakable and fixable and turning into something very, very cool.
I mean, the thing is that, sorry, we've been going on for so long, and I don't want to take any more time, but just very briefly.
No, it's okay.
Once you get past the A tier, and even in the A tier, we live in a world with so many great third-party writers and designers and adventures that you just really shouldn't be bothering unless there's something that's super, super exciting to you about that specific concept. And so, like, I guess that's, to me, like, beneath the C tier.
Oh, that's smart.
Beneath the B and C
concept,
or beneath the A tier, if there's something you're interested in. So, for example, if you love Dragonlance, then Dragonlance is workable, right? If you love epic,
or it's stuff to steal from, right? If you're like, man, I love Dragonlance. Right. Hey, it's maybe not the best adventure, but there's gonna be stuff to steal from. If you don't love Dragonlance, don't even bother with stealing.
If you love Spelljammer, take a look. But like, if you don't care about any of these things, none of these adventures are better than picking up a cheap or free third-party adventure, of which there are many. And the really disappointing thing is beneath that, if you things that I am excited about, like Vecna,
not Ricky Morty,
Planescape, right? Not only is there, like, you shouldn't even bother. Like, you should not bother with like Vecna, Eve of Ruin, even if you like. Sorry, I disagree with Matt here. I would rather start from scratch than try to salvage that adventure. And I guess that's the thing. It's like S and A are good adventures that are worth running as written or to borrow from. Beneath that, it's very, very, very conditional. You know?
Yeah, I have to agree. Keep in mind that some of these are anthologies, and so we've tried to give, I don't know, some kind of average weighted, skewed by the framing device, but I think that is a really, really good way to look at it. And I'm very happy with our S tier, right?
Feels good. Feels right.
I would recommend all three of these adventures, and I think we got the order right. They definitely go in order, not of like total prep work, but of like patching holes and lines of code in the algorithm of the adventure, of like how things are structured to be the most fun for your players. And I think, one thing about all three of these that binds them together beyond just like having a cool concept, right, is that they all really have a point in the adventure. Maybe it's not the whole thing where it's just like, hey, you have a goal, do what you want here. Here's all these hooks and things for you to do. And I think that's very, very valuable. And when I look at our Insulted tier, there is like not a moment where the players are given, go do what you want in the context of this overall goal or goals. There's none of that in those.
Yeah. Well, I think we've said everything that we want to say.
Well, what did we learn here, Palmer?
Nothing. We learned nothing.
Nothing. Good. Excellent.
Thank you all for listening or watching. Boy, I hope that you liked this.
We will be back with a tier list of every spell in D&D, every campaign
for
setting.
What it's worth,
I don't know what else.
It feels very cathartic to me, Matt. I'm really glad that we did this, and we.
I feel like we can bury
behind us. We addressed it. We faced it head on. We came to a satisfying conclusion, I think, and now we're ready for whatever comes next.
Yes, Dungeon Masters Adventurers, right? We come not to, what was it? We come not to praise 5e,
but to honor him. Or
honor it. Yeah, I think we did a good job of burying 5e. Of course, we made this tier list for clickbait and to get people riled up
and make people mad. Yeah.
If you disagree with us, please write Rob at dungeonmasterofnone.com.
Yeah, add us on Twitter loudly to quote tweet us and tell us how much you hate this list.
Yeah.
All right. Thanks.
But if you do want to actually contact us, our email address is dmofnone@gmail.com. And if you like what we did,
check us out on Patreon at patreon.com/dungeonmasterofnone, where if you're listening to this, you can watch the video and see us put these on at, one at a time. So yeah.
Thank you, everyone. Thanks for sticking with us.
Thanks for sticking with us, and keep rolling them dice.
You better roll them dice. You never know if it could change your life. Take a chance, you're neither wrong or right. You never know if you don't roll them dice. You better roll them dice. You never know if it'll change your life. Take a chance, you're neither wrong or right.